Chapter 337. It was drizzling lightly, knocking on the windowsill and isolating the noise from the outside world. Combined with the words Sunday morning, it created a lazy atmosphere that made people unwilling to open their eyes or leave their bed. Yan Shaoling wrapped herself in the quilt and didn't want to wake up. In her dream, she seemed to be able to forget yesterday's failure and sadness and not worry about anything. She had a bad habit of sleeping intermittently and looking at her phone from time to time when she woke up. Her good skill was to turn over and fall asleep quickly. She forced herself to open her eyes and put her phone under the warm quilt. Yan Shaoling unlocked the screen and refreshed the campus forum she had browsed before. She saw a new post marked in red. Is there anyone who wants to cheer for the martial arts club now? Cheer for the martial arts club? Wasn't the match yesterday? Am I hallucinating? Yan Shaoling rubbed her face and clicked on the post. The poster said, I watched the match between the martial arts club and Shanbei. It made my blood boil and I feel sorry for them. They fought so well but still had to bear the pain of failure. I feel that I should do something for them. Is there anyone who wants to go to the martial arts arena to show support? Now boys or girls are welcome. Yan Shaoling scrolled down and found a lot of replies. The more she read, the more impulsive she became. Finally, she conquered the cold of the winter morning and pulled herself out of the comfortable bed. She put on a long down jacket, opened the dormitory door and ran into the bone-chilling north wind. As a girl from Yanling, she couldn't adapt to the southern winter at all. In the martial arts arena, Lu Qing practiced the swordsman formula internally for a while and then took a break. He knew how to relax and tighten, which fully showed the identity of the injured. During this process, he noticed that students were coming in one after another. They walked to the stands on both sides and sat down in a mess. What's going on? Lu Qing, who was correcting and guiding Xianxia, was puzzled. He couldn't figure out what was going on. Flash. Doesn't seem like it. Cheng, look, there are so many students. We didn't have so many students watching us during the special training. Xianxia also sensed that something was wrong. Taking advantage of her boyfriend's approach, she raised her chin toward the stands. Yeah, it's making me nervous. I'm always afraid of making big news. Lu Qing looked around and answered in a low voice. At this moment, Kai Zhongming's eyes met his as he was looking around. He said excitedly, Cheng, did you see that? Some of our classmates even came to watch our training and there were so many of them. This is the rhythm of becoming famous. This is the treatment of a martial arts expert. It can't be that bad, right? Lu Qing was stunned. Kai Zhongming was about to make up a set of self-justifying theories when he suddenly saw the students who came on Sunday morning stand up. They formed a loudspeaker with their hands and shouted to the special training members, Good luck. Keep it up. Their voices echoed in the slightly spacious stadium. Lu Qing and the others were stunned for a moment, but they soon realized that the students were expressing their support for yesterday's competition. Keep up the good work means that you guys did very, very well in the last match. Good luck. Keep it up. The scattered voices became more and more orderly and gradually merged into one. Lu Qing and the others seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. They became more motivated and passionate in training. Quick, take a picture. Xu Rui's eyes were slightly red, and she ordered the cameraman with shining eyes. What a great bunch of classmates. What a loving picture. When everyone left reluctantly, the special training was coming to an end. Xu Rui finally found a chance to record the post-match match that she was too embarrassed to do yesterday. She decided to start with the most difficult part. Lin Ke, how's your recovery? Has the dark poison force been completely eliminated? Xu Rui put on a friendly smile. She couldn't be wrong to start with words of concern. Lin Ke panted and sweated. He glanced at her and said, Secret. Secret? Secret again. What a damn secret. Xu Rui's mouth was half open and the corner of her eyes twitched. After taking a deep breath, she maintained her professional smile and said, Are you afraid that Sanjiang College will find out about the progress of your recovery? Well, I'll change the question. You seem to be in good spirits. It seems that you have walked out of the influence of failure. No. Lin Ke answered very seriously. What an honest boy. Xu Rui had the urge to cover her face and sigh, but she still smiled gracefully. Why do you say so? You don't look like one. Failure inspires me to move forward. Lin Ke said concisely. What a standard answer. I feel like I've been tricked. Xu Rui silently watched Lin Ke turn around and walk to the locker room. She collected herself and stopped Lu Qing. She smiled and said, You seem to be in a good mood. Young people don't fail. Lu Qing laughed. I like to chat with young people like you. I feel full of vitality again. Xu Rui made fun of herself. About yesterday's match, what do you think? I found the gap. Well, I also saw the hope and set a goal. Lu Qing said frankly, not hiding anything. You have momentum. Xu Rui gave him a thumbs up and praised him sincerely. She didn't want to pester him and turned to Xianxia. Is it a pity that you didn't play yesterday? She passed the microphone to Xianxia. Xianxia pursed her lips and smiled. Yes. Although I couldn't have changed anything, it was still a pity. I heard that Peng Leyun likes to take shortcuts by jumping off buildings. That's the strength of a professional sixth pin in the dance stage. Has Lu Qing done something similar before? Xu Rui asked. She asked casually, but Xianxia was startled. She was almost stunned. Reporter Xu asked this on purpose, didn't she? Did she mean it? Qing just hugged me and experienced that kind of excitement last night, and she asked this question this morning. Isn't it too much of a coincidence? Did someone see it and expose it last night? That kind of thing. She looked at Xu Rui suspiciously and then smiled sweetly with dimples. Good kids don't imitate dangerous moves. Well, that's it. Xu Rui was confused by Xianxia's irrelevant answer. In a hurry to catch up on homework, it was already 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, December 28th. Songqing University Martial Arts Club would challenge Sanjiang College Martial Arts Club on Sunday. If they lost, they would have no chance to enter the finals of this martial arts competition. To be cautious, they packed their luggage and gathered at the bus station. They planned to leave one day earlier and use the whole night to rest up so that they wouldn't be affected by the long journey. In front of the bus, Xu Rui stood with the microphone in her hand. With the camera as the background, she said to Lu Qing, Lin Ke and the others, "Another expedition is coming. Don't you want to say something?" Say something? While Lu Qing and Xianxia were thinking, little Ming's eyes lit up. He patted each of them on the shoulder and whispered something. Then Lu Qing and Xianxia put their arms around each other's shoulders. Xianxia was next to Hezi and Hezi was next to Mu Jinyan. Everyone participated in the same action and formed an arc. They bowed their backs and shouted in unison, "We want to win. No matter who our opponent is, we want to win." December 29th, Sunday afternoon, 2:50 p.m., in the martial arts arena of Sanjiang College. In the locker room of the home team, Chu Hui was wearing a black tuxedo and a top hat. He looked around at Luo Hei's Xianxia and the others and said solemnly, "Lu Cheng's internal injury hasn't healed and Lin Ke is affected by the dark poison force. He's definitely not in his best condition. This is our chance. I have to admit, no matter in which industry or circle, luck is a very important thing. And this time it belongs to us. If we didn't meet Songqing University in the second round, and if Songqing University didn't fight so hard against Shanbei, we wouldn't have any hope. But now we have a big chance of winning. Since we have a good chance of winning, we can't miss it. We can't miss it because of our own mistakes. There's an old saying that goes, if you don't take what God gives, you'll be punished. If you don't take what God gives, you'll be punished." Luo Hei's Xianxia and the others silently repeated these words. They were a little excited by the president's words. In the locker room of the away team, Geezer Shi looked at Lu Cheng and Lin Ke and asked, "You two brats, can you fight?" Lu Cheng and Lin Ke didn't look at each other, but they shouted at the same time, "Yes." Chapter 338. Since all of you can fight, we don't need to care about the order. Geezer Shi had an indifferent look on his face. "Little Yin, you'll be the vanguard. You'll gain more combat experience." "Okay." Xianxia answered in a clear voice. Geezer Shi looked at Lin Quebec, "You'll be the second one. Don't fight too hard. Don't let the last bit of poison come back and leave a bad effect." He made it sound very serious on purpose so that Lin Ke wouldn't overhear it. Lin Ke nodded slightly with an expressionless face. Geezer Shi glanced at Lu Cheng. "Brat, take it easy in the end." "Yes, master." After a week of treatment, Lu Cheng was eager to fight in the arena. In the locker room of the home team, Chu Hui looked at Luo Hei's and Xianxia and shook his head with a smile. "It's a pity that the substitutes of Songqing University are much stronger. Otherwise you two can take turns to fight Lin Ke and I can fight Lu Cheng alone. That would be easy." "Yeah, the substitutes of Songqing University are much stronger. It's not that easy to defeat them." Xianxia sighed. Xianxia was a professional 9th pin fighter, Li Mao was close to professional 9th pin, and Sun Jian, Lin Hua and Kai Zhongming were all strong 1st pin fighters. It was not easy to defeat them. Luo Hei's echoed. "Unless we meet you, President." Chu Hui smiled reservedly. "I have to maintain my full strength to fight against Lu Cheng. I can't consume too much energy in advance. According to my estimation, Songqing University will definitely let the substitutes be the vanguard when the gap between you and the substitutes is not that big. Lu Cheng's internal injuries haven't healed yet, so he should be the one to hold the field. If he can avoid fighting, he should. If he can, he should. At this point, he turned his head to look at xianxia. Li Mao has the problem of being nervous. Although it's not too serious, it still affects him to some extent. Yanjika has less actual combat experience and is a girl, so she tends to panic when encountering situations. Sun Jian and Kai Zongming are relatively weaker, so they are all restrained by your fighting style. You'll be the first one to fight. Fight fiercely and scare them. Try to win quickly. Okay. Xianxia clenched his fists, eager to try. He was known for not blocking or blocking, only attacking and not defending. He was good at seizing opportunities with courage and judgment in a split second. His fighting style was very aggressive and could scare people. In short, you and Hai Zhe should exhaust Lin Ke as much as possible. Don't let me be distracted by him. This is the key to victory. Chu Hui said with high fighting spirit. In the blink of an eye, the match was about to begin. Led by Geezer Shi, Lu Cheng, Yanjika and the others walked out of the locker room and went to the guest team seats in a single file. At this moment, a burst of ear-piercing boos suddenly rang out in the stadium full of spectators, which lasted for a long time. You're making me want to go to the bathroom, Talker teased casually. Then you should go and have your prostate checked. Lu Cheng glanced at him. Different home grounds really had different styles. The students of Sanjiang High School did not curse or attack, they just booed you. Xiaoming didn't want to lose, so he said, "This is a figure of speech, do you understand? You're so uncultured." Hee listening to the boos, do you have the urge to beat them to a stop just like that time in Yimo? You say it like you've been there yourself, Lu Cheng said with amusement. Fighting Yimo is a fight between the weak and the strong. What's the point of competing with Sanjiang High School Martial Arts Club? Is it the pleasure of punching a kindergarten or kicking a nursing home? Or is it bullying elementary school students? Bullying elementary school students is quite interesting, really. Kai Zongming thought for a while and said frankly. While talking, they arrived at the guest team seats and sat down. Cheng, were you speaking from your heart to Talker just now? Yanjika leaned close to Lu Cheng's ear, lowered her voice and asked with a smile. Cuckoo, you know me best. Lu Cheng chuckled. I'm belittling him strategically and attaching importance to him tactically. Chu Hui has entered the dance stage and has improved his supernatural ability to fly. Compared to before, he has changed fundamentally. He was able to defeat an 8th pin dance stage fighter before, so now he's definitely harder to deal with. That's right. Yanjika first agreed in a low voice, then turned her eyes and smiled. But there's still a big gap between you and him, especially when his supernatural ability is more restrained by you. Although Cheng couldn't fly, he could release his supernatural abilities of ice and fire. If Chu Hui really wanted to fly, then he would be shot down by a bow. Of course, this wasn't the only use of his supernatural ability to fly. Chu Hui's strange direction changes and use of space during battle were all beyond the level of a high-ranked dance stage fighter. Since Ko Qian said so, then I'll reluctantly be proud of him. Lu Cheng saw the referee enter the arena and stand in the center. He heard the broadcast announcing the two sides of the first round. Xianxia versus Yanjika. Lu Cheng reached out and held the girl's delicate hand, reminding her with concern, you can't panic when you fight with him. You can't panic either. Yanjika smiled tacitly. In the past week and even in the past year, she and Cheng had watched a lot of Xianxia's videos. They had already summed up the way to fight against him. That was to not panic and not be pulled into his aggressive rhythm. She had to hold her breath and move around. Even if there was a certain chance, she wouldn't fight recklessly. She would wait until Xianxia was exhausted, and when the perfect opportunity appeared, she would seize it without hesitation and firmly launch a counterattack to kill him with one blow. Clear the stage with one pull. Don't be stubborn for long. The two squeezed each other's hands. Yanjika stood up and bumped fists with Lin Ke, Li Mao and the others. Then she walked to the stone steps unhurriedly. The boos became louder, mixed with a lot of flirtatious whistles. The atmosphere in the stadium was heating up again. Step by step, Yanjika stepped onto the arena. She saw Xianxia from the corner of her eye, who was already in position. He was a handsome boy with a straight beard. He looked thin and reserved, but in fact he was crazy and aggressive. Xianxia's gaze was also involuntarily attracted by her. He only felt that his opponent was bright and beautiful. Her starry eyes tugged at his heartstrings, making him unable to be ruthless. He instinctively wanted to pay attention to his demeanor and show his gentlemanly side. He shook his head and suppressed the ripples in his heart. Ferocity was brewing in his heart again. Sometimes, being handsome and beautiful was equivalent to being born with a supernatural ability. The supernatural ability to charm. When xianxia stood properly and got into her stance, the referee looked at the clock. After a dozen seconds, he raised his right hand and said, "Talk time starts now." This match, which determined who would advance and who would be eliminated, had officially begun. If Songqing University won, Songqing University would follow Shanbei University into the national competition, while Songqing University would have to start all over again. Xianxia took a breath and didn't say anything. He just stared at xianxia with a dangerous look. Was this the legendary killing with a look? Xianxia wasn't scared or nervous. Instead, she inexplicably wanted to laugh. She remembered Cheng's ridicule. Two people would become more and more alike in some aspects after being together for a long time. The girl stopped thinking about it, ignored his gaze and focused on adjusting her state. At the end, Xianxia suddenly opened his mouth and said with a smile, "Don't worry. I won't be too harsh." Did he mean that he didn't need to use his full strength to deal with her? Was he trying to provoke her by being frivolous? As this thought flashed through xianxia's mind, the referee waved his right hand and announced loudly, "Start." Humph. You've been led astray by my brother. You've learned to be silent for 3 minutes before saying something bad at the end. Xianxia thought for a moment and didn't get irritated. She swayed her waist and walked around Xianxia with light steps. Like a climbing mountain goat, she was nimble and balanced, not giving her opponent a chance to get close to attack her. She took advantage of the gap and suddenly moved to her opponent's side. She raised her right arm and punched down with a clenched fist. Xianxia didn't try to parry. He tightened his thighs and gave her a side kick, faster and fiercer. Bam. According to this trend, xianxia would be kicked directly before she could hit her opponent. She calmed down, suppressed her impatience and panic, and adhered to her original fighting style. While Xianxia was kicking to the west, she swung her waist and slid to the back of her opponent. Her right fist moved diagonally, and under the explosive force of her shoulder, she smashed towards her opponent's temple. Bam! She lowered her waist and followed up with her left fist. 2 peaks piercing the ear. Xianxia suddenly bent his waist, shrank his head and leaned back quickly. At the same time he raised his elbow and was about to hit xianxia's lower abdomen. No parry, just one hit. Xianxia didn't take advantage of this dangerous opportunity. She suddenly dispersed the force in her arms and jumped back. She took a few steps back lightly and harmoniously and quickly widened the distance between them. After a few moves, she gradually became familiar with Xianxia's fighting style. No longer nervous and flustered, she strictly followed the plan made before the competition. She continued to move around. If she couldn't hit her opponent, she would immediately retreat. Bam 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 bam. Lu Qing was a little worried when he heard the intermittent sounds on the field. Although he knew that the referee was a senior of High Dan stage and would be able to stop the attacks of 2 professional 9th pin fighters, he still couldn't help but worry that xianxia would be hurt. On the other hand, Chu Hui, who was sitting in the home team's seats, didn't look good. His expectation of a quick victory was ruined from the beginning. Didn't they say that xianxia lacked actual combat experience? Didn't they say that girls were easy to panic? Why was she so experienced and clear-headed? She didn't fall into Xianxi's rhythm at all, making him unable to use his strength. In this way, Lin Ke won't consume enough energy, and I won't be able to face Lu Qing in good condition. Should I use that move? Just use it. Anyway, I'll be able to advance if I win this match. I never thought I'd win against Shanbei next week. After a while of moving around, xianxia noticed that Xianxi's attacking momentum had decreased and he was obviously impatient. She immediately had a plan. Once again, she approached her opponent's side and visualized the scene of a mighty avalanche in her mind. She shook her shoulders and slightly raised her right arm as if she was about to attack. Bam! Xianxia, who was a little anxious, once again gave a fierce side kick. At this moment, xianxia bent her spine and forcibly changed her center of gravity. She pulled her body and slid behind her opponent when he was standing on one foot. Chapter 339. Bam! As soon as she got behind xianxia exerted all her strength in her shaking shoulders. She shook her right arm and stabbed at Xianxi's temple like a big gun. Standing on one foot with his back to the enemy, Xianxia was in a precarious situation. It seemed that he had nowhere to run. At this critical moment, his courage did not diminish. He bent his spine like a bow and forcibly pulled back his left leg, which had missed the kick, and swept it backward. He leaned his body forward and took advantage of the momentum to avoid xianxia's fatal blow. He still didn't make any move, just one move. However, this time, Xianxia didn't continue to dodge like before. Instead, she resolutely took advantage of the momentum of her right arm's missed attack and jumped to the back of her opponent again. Taking advantage of her position in the center of the circle, she dodged the sweeping whip kick in time. Now that she had sensed her opponent's impatience and seized the perfect opportunity, she wouldn't hesitate to counterattack and kill him with one blow. One pole to clear the platform. Bam! She kicked out her right foot at Xianxia's supporting leg. At this point, Xianxia was already at the end of his rope. He had no choice but to throw himself forward and roll like a lazy donkey. Xianxia stepped on the ground with her right foot and slid closer. Then she kicked out her left leg at the opponent's chest. Bam! Xianxia barely raised his arm and took the kick. Bam! 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 Xianxia visualized the scene of brutal blizzard, and kicked out her legs, one faster and harder than the other. Bam! 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 Lying on the ground, Xianxia couldn't exert his strength. After blocking 3 kicks with his hands, he was kicked away completely. Then Xianxia jumped forward and kicked at his throat. First round, Xianxia wins. The referee glanced and shouted, "Yes." Xianxia was so excited that she turned around and waved her fist at the guest seats. Then she saw Lu Qing jump up and hit the table with both hands. He was even more excited than she was. Who would have thought that he could beat Xianxia like this before the match? Things would be much easier if he could find a way to restrain his opponent and strictly execute it. Trash. Chu Hui swallowed the anger and grievance in his throat and did not curse out loud. Previously, he had pinned so much hope on Xianxia, thinking that it was quite possible for him to quickly become Songqing University's substitute. In the end, not only did he not win quickly, but he also lost to his opponent. How were they supposed to fight? His plan was ruined from the very beginning. He could only pray that Lu Qing and Lin Kei's injuries were more serious than he had expected. Go, do your best. Chu Hui patted Luo Hei's shoulder weakly. Hopefully he could exhaust Lin Kei a little more. Luo Hei stood up. His tall and broad stature was indeed a good material for practicing martial arts. In the ring, Xianxia, who had calmed down, realized that the muscles in her legs and feet were tight and sore. Her physical strength was close to the limit. Guerrilla fighting required high-speed movements, timely direction changes and nimble footwork, which consumed a lot of physical strength. Xianxia and Xianxia had fought for several minutes, and at the end they had even used 24 blizzard strikes with the help of the yin-yang twist, so it was normal for them to have such a reaction. She rested her hands on her knees and gasped for air. She saw Luo Hei stride past Xianxia, who had just left the arena. He should be able to exchange a few more moves. Behind him are my brother and Cheng. They all look like they want to fight. Well, it seems that I don't have to force myself. While thinking, Xianxia, who had slightly recovered, straightened her back, turned around and walked to the edge of the ring. She left the arena along the stone steps. The referee looked at the stunned Luo Hei and activated his Dantian force. Second round, Luo Hei wins. I won. Luo Hei stared at Xianxia's back in a daze as if he was dreaming. Lin Kei slid down his zipper, took off his jacket, high-fived Lu Qing and the others, and walked to his cousin calmly. I won't say good luck. Xianxia pursed her lips and smiled. She raised her hand and bumped her cousin's fist. What she meant was that he didn't need to cheer for such a high-level opponent. Just right for recovery. Lin Kei answered briefly and approached the stone steps amidst the boos. Behind him, Lu Qing supported Xianxia and chuckled. You fought so well. This was the joke after losing to Peng Liyun in the last round. It was the difference between you fought so well and you fought so well. Then I'll accept the compliment. Xianxia's eyes curved and her voice rose at the end. While climbing the ring, Lin Kei's body emitted a crisp sound, as if a rusty machine was starting to turn. It gradually smoothed out and climbed to the peak. When he stood in front of Luo Hei's, his whole body was as deep as the sea. His momentum seemed to have solidified. Suddenly, Luo Hei felt that he had turned into a little white rabbit in front of a tiger. He was inexplicably frightened and nervous. He couldn't help but think of the scene when Lin Kei fought against Shannon. That terrifying posture of using the dance stage explosion to attack at the beginning of the match. Is he scared before the fight? Just as the thought flashed through his mind, he heard the referee shout loudly, "Start." Luo Hei didn't dare to stay in the same place. His footsteps were steady and fast. Lin Kei straightened his knees and shot out like lightning. Although he didn't use force concentration, he was as fast as thunder. In just a few steps, he had closed the distance between him and his opponent. Luo Hei immediately changed his direction and tried to go around to the side. However, Lin Kei's center of gravity swayed and they moved almost at the same time. Faster, more nimble and better at changing directions. Dozens of seconds later, Lin Kei grabbed his opponent's tail and threw punches and kicks, forcing him to dodge in a hurry to avoid a head-on collision to avoid being hit by the meteor force. In a flash, Luo Hei's kept dodging but Lin Kei didn't panic. He condensed his chi, blood, spirit and force. Boom. His Dan chi gushed out and his left leg expanded. He suddenly stomped down and followed up with a plow. Bang. With a muffled sound, the ground cracked and debris flew, as if a volcano had suddenly erupted. Luo Hei's lost his balance and his body swayed. Lin Kei seized the opportunity and took a step forward. He swelled his temples and quickly swung his right arm. A meteor streaking across the sky, he threw a punch at his opponent. Luo Hei's couldn't dodge in time. He struggled to maintain his balance and raised his arms to defend. Bang! The meteor fell to the ground and exploded like a bomb. The shock wave swept out. Luo Hei's felt the shock spread to his whole body, rolling his chi and blood and trembling his muscles. Bang! 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 Lin Kei quickly swung his arms and continued to attack. Bang! 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 Luo Hei's was punched several times in a row. He directly collapsed on the ground and kept retching. The referee raised his right hand and said, "Round 3 Lin Kei wins." Round 3 Lin Kei wins. In the home team's seats, Xuanhuan blacked out and covered his face. He only felt that the future was bleak. Luo Hei's was defeated in such a short time and didn't cause much damage to his opponent. In this way it would take him a lot of effort just to beat Lin Quebec. How could he deal with Lu Qing behind him? This bunch of trash. He gnashed his teeth and cursed silently. He walked out of the seats and walked to the arena with a gentlemanly manner. No matter what, he had to fight first. While walking, he suddenly froze and stood there in a daze. At the edge of the arena, Lin Kei put away his stance, turned around and walked down the stone steps. Walk down the stone steps? Walk down the stone steps. What is my brother-in-law thinking? Lu Qing was at a loss. Beside him, Xianxia was also at a loss. After a while, she muttered to herself, "My brother may want to leave you a more complete opponent." "What do you mean by more complete?" Lu Qing's mouth twitched and he almost laughed. He instinctively walked forward. He only shook the girl's hand and forgot to high-five or fist bump with the others. When he met Lin Kei on the way, Lu Qing smiled and said, "You're putting me under a lot of pressure." If he lost, he would have to say goodbye to the national competition. Lin Kei looked at him indifferently and said, "I have to stop before I go too far." "That's too far." Lu Qing didn't have the strength to complain, but he vaguely read the other meaning in his brother-in-law's eyes. If we can't even beat Xuanhuan, why should we participate in the national competition? Is he provoking me? Is my brother-in-law worried that I will be traumatized by the competition in Shanbei? Lu Qing suddenly realized and laughed in a low voice, "Then I won't hold back. My brother-in-law is such an awkward guy." After a fist bump, Lu Qing looked at the arena and stepped forward. "Fight Xuanhuan alone? I'm not afraid of you." Xuanhuan, who was standing in the center, seemed to be in an unbelievable dream. He was afraid that he would suddenly wake up. "I've painstakingly planned and prayed and looked forward to it so that I could defeat Lu Qing alone in the end. But in the end it happened inexplicably. After xianxia and Haizhe both failed, I was in despair. Who knew that things would turn around and Lin Kei himself would come down? Good things really fall from the sky." He raised the corner of his mouth and could no longer hide the ecstasy in his heart. If God gives you a gift, you will be punished. Chapter 340. Lin Kei's desire to win was almost abnormal. If he could still fight, he wouldn't give up voluntarily. Based on the above 2 points, the reason why he voluntarily left the arena after defeating Luo Hei's was most likely because the influence of the dark poison force was much more serious than I expected. I really had to thank Fang Zhirong for getting the opportunity to challenge Lu Qing one-on-one. A self-consistent chain of logic flashed in Xuanhuan's mind, making him forget other factors and outlining an unconcealable smile. I hope Lu Qing's internal injury is more serious than I expected. No, even if it's only to the extent of my speculation, today's victory will be mine. He fixed his eyes on Lu Qing, who was walking up the stairs step by step. Lu Qing stood in front of him with a slightly pale face. Smiling slightly, Xuanhuan took off his top hat in a very gentlemanly manner, put it in front of his chest and bowed. Lu Qing made an obeisance, which was a response. The referee didn't give them any more time. He immediately raised his right hand and shouted, "Start." The last round of the match began. Hearing this, even though Xianxia was full of confidence in Lu Qing, she couldn't help but clench her fists and open her eyes wide. Chu Hui instantly flew up to a position a few meters above the ground, floating gracefully and leisurely, throwing out the black top hat in his hand. The hat fluttered and fell to the seats of the home team. As soon as it touched the ground, Chu Hui suddenly fell down, head down and feet up. His right hand clenched into a fist, like a huge stone smashing towards Lu Qing from the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. His clothes clung tightly to his body, making flapping sounds. The momentum was hair-raising. Although the audience had seen this scene many times, they were still shocked, as if they were watching a blockbuster with special effects. Facing the attack from above, Lu Qing assumed a stance and stood firmly. He visualized the figure of a man with the head of a beast riding on a red dragon. Suppressing the violent heat that was beginning to swell in his body, he calmly clenched his fist and charged upwards. Bang! His fist hit the void and exploded a mass of flames that reflected the audience's eyes. Zhurong Force, supernatural ability of fire. The flames rolled out and Chu Hui's falling figure suddenly stopped. He rose up again to avoid the aftermath in time, in case his hair and clothes were ignited and burned. He narrowed his eyes, not surprised by Lu Qing's response. He took a deep breath to withdraw his qi, blood, force and spirit, and then released them. As his body expanded, Chu Hui fell headfirst to the ground again. But unlike before, he spun quickly and turned himself into a drill that extended to the ground with his fist as the tip. The scenery around him shook weirdly and even the air was affected. The combination of the explosion of the dance stage, the acceleration of gravity, and the terrifying rotation, flesh and blood tornado. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't use weapons due to the level restriction, Chu Hui's move would have been even more terrifying. Lu Qing maintained his previous stance. When the high-speed spinning fist was about to fall on his head, he suddenly stepped back, as if he wanted to avoid the sharp edge and hit his opponent's waist and abdomen. At this moment, Chu Hui's figure strangely changed direction from vertical to horizontal, turning the acceleration of gravity into his own kinetic energy. His fist spun quickly and hit Lu Qing. Lulan swore not to return it until it was broken. This punch was very satisfying for him. Not only did he use all the strength in his body, but he also made full use of the external force. The combination of the two forces and the spiral force was really powerful. This is the most powerful punch I've ever made since I started practicing martial arts. Chu Hui thought. He was excited to break all obstacles in his way. Lu Qing lowered his waist and quickly made a force concentration. Then he popped up his right arm. His arm swelled and his 5 fingers pressed against his opponent's drill. Bam bam bam. The sound of collisions was continuous. The muscles and fascia in his palm bulged and blocked Chu Hui's right fist. His fingers glowed with a dark green color and kept colliding with the rotating edge. Chu Hui felt his most powerful punch was like hitting a steel plate. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break it or drill through it. No, even if it was a steel plate, it would be broken by my punch. Crack. Wearing a white martial arts suit with black edges, Lu Qing's feet pressed inward, creating a spider web that spread outward. However, his body didn't move at all. His right arm swung slightly and then pressed forward again like flowing water, firmly blocking Chu Hui's flesh and blood tornado. My most powerful punch was so easily blocked by him? Is the gap between him and me so big? A weak 6-pin fighter is so terrifying? At this moment, Chu Hui felt an inexplicable sense of despair. The rotation of the flesh and blood tornado slowed down. Lu Qing's 5 fingers pressed down and was about to catch his fist. At this moment, Chu Hui bounced up and was pulled up by the invisible hand. He narrowly avoided being caught by his opponent. If he was caught by Lu Qing and poured into the cold wave, he would lose. Once again he floated several meters in the air. Restraining his frustration, he decided to change his fighting style. He didn't want to rush forward and attack fiercely anymore. Instead, he relied on the strange change of direction brought by his supernatural flying ability to fight. Another kind of hurricane blew up and distracted Lu Qing, gradually exposing his unhealed internal injuries. With a swoosh, Chu Hui was like a fighter jet, diving towards his opponent. Seeing that both sides were about to collide, he suddenly pulled up his body, drawing a beautiful arc, strangely moved to the side, and with a bang kicked the enemy's temple. Bam! Lu Qing raised his left arm first, blocking the kick just in time. Bam! Chu Hui turned the kick into a stomp and kicked out the other foot. It was so fast that Lu Qing couldn't react in time. However, Lu Qing moved his arm in advance and blocked the attack in time. Bam! 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 Lu Qing blocked and blocked. Although he seemed to be in a panic, he always rushed forward. However, he still defended steadily. All of a sudden, Chu Hui changed his direction without warning. He came to the back of Lu Cheng's head and kicked at his Yuzhen acupoint. His series of kicks just now was to mobilize his opponent and prepare for this move. Bam! Lu Cheng leaned his body and swung his arm backward, hitting Chu Hui's instep. Bam! 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 Chu Hui tried his best to stop abruptly with his supernatural flying ability, changing directions in a strange way, creating great opportunities again and again. Unfortunately, every time he seemed to have fallen into Lu Cheng's trap and was always blocked by him. At most, there were some errors that did not affect the overall situation. How could he not feel hopeless? How did he block my attacks just now? Bam! Boom! His Dan Qi gushed out like a volcano erupting. Chu Hui felt as if his butt had been burned. With a bang, he broke through the airflow and set off a strong wind. In the strong wind, he made a half-arc and miraculously appeared behind Lu Cheng again. Chu Hui's body came to a sudden stop, and his kinetic energy was transmitted. Chu Hui tightened his thighs in an instant and whipped his opponent's neck horizontally. Let's see if you can still react. Lu Cheng didn't try to dodge. He gathered and retracted his Dan Qi and turned his right hand into a whip, lashing out in the opposite direction. Bang! The whip struck the whip leg, creating a muffled sound. Chu Hui felt a sharp pain in his face. His body shook violently. He didn't dare to stay any longer. He flew up and hid in the air. For the sake of demeanor, he resisted the urge to rub his legs with both hands. Even this won't work? Chu Hui didn't believe it and launched another attack. With the help of his supernatural flying ability, he made 2 consecutive explosions. However, Lu Cheng still defended him so well that he couldn't create a chance to win. Whoosh! 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 He floated up, gasping for air and feeling the exhaustion in his body. Since the beginning of the fight, he who was not good at physical strength, was quite tired. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, was breathing evenly and only sweating a little. How could he continue the fight? Chu Hui felt desperate again and almost didn't want to attack. His internal injury hadn't healed yet. His internal injury hadn't healed yet. His internal injury hadn't healed yet. Chu Hui kept telling himself as if he was hypnotizing himself. Yes, his internal injury hadn't healed yet. If the intensity of the fight was maintained for a while, it would affect him and give him a chance. Chu Hui took a deep breath and made up his mind. He started to visualize and run his supernatural ability to stimulate the essence and blood in his body. The familiar feeling of power spread. Chu Hui's face turned red and blue. Finally, he stabilized and his body seemed to expand. He returned to his peak state with the help of the secret method. Come on, let's fight until we run out of ammunition and see who will win. Lu Cheng raised his head and glanced at him. He shook his head slightly. What do you mean? The doubt flashed through Chu Hui's mind. He turned into a fighter jet again and swooped down. At this moment, Lu Cheng arched his back, shook his arms and swung his wrists, throwing out a ball of crystal white cold light and crimson-red tyrannical flame. Boom! The cold light and the flame shot out and collided with each other in front of Chu Hui. White fog filled the air and slightly blocked his sight. In the fog, Chu Hui suddenly saw a figure fly up and jump several meters high. Lu Cheng? His pupils shrank to the size of needles. He found that the enemy had jumped to a higher place than his current position. After the shock, he was overjoyed. Chu Hui couldn't believe his eyes. Is Lu Cheng stupid? Why did he give up his advantage and fight me in the air? If I can't win, I might as well buy a piece of tofu and kill myself. Another pie fell from the sky. Chu Hui was about to change his direction when he saw Lu Cheng make a gesture with his hands. His expression became solemn. Army? A deep voice came. Chu Hui's body shook and immediately fell into the thousands of soldiers and horses. He was frightened by the iron-blooded evil spirit. 9 words formula, army formula. Lu Cheng jumped down and grabbed Chu Hui's shoulder. He poured frost force into Chu Hui and pressed him down to the ground from the air. Whoosh! The sound of wind entered his ears and Chu Hui woke up. However, the cold had already entered his body and he could not break free. He could only watch as he was about to crash into the ground. You'll die like this, won't you? Just as he lost his courage, he felt the momentum of his falling body suddenly come to a halt, and he landed lightly on his back. Lu Cheng took back his hand and straightened his body. He didn't attack again. Chu Hui was frozen and couldn't move for a while. Round 5, Lu Cheng wins. The referee didn't hesitate. The final result is Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins. Chu Hui immediately woke up when he heard these words. But he felt like he was still dreaming. If Lu Cheng had used the last attack at the beginning, he wouldn't have been able to defend himself. Then the question was, why did we fight for so long? In the midst of his confusion and despair, he saw Lu Qing smile at him and say softly, "I'm sorry. It's interesting to fight with a supernatural flying ability." Chapter 341. It's interesting to fight with a supernatural flying ability. Lying on the ground, Chu Hui looked up at Lu Qing and repeated Lu Qing's words blankly. For a moment he even forgot that the coldness in his body had disappeared. He forgot to turn over and stand up, forgetting his usual demeanor. He fought with me for so long because he wanted to experience and enjoy the unique experience of fighting with a supernatural flying ability? Thump, 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 thump. Chu Hui's heart expanded and contracted, spurting out streams of hot blood to disperse the remaining coldness. However, he didn't feel warm at all. Instead, he felt like he had sunk into a 10,000-year-old ice cave, feeling the darkness, depression, and coldness around him. Is this the taste of despair? Is the gap between me and Lu Qing so big? Even when facing him who hasn't recovered from his internal injuries, I can only be killed within seconds. His previous self-esteem had turned into sarcasm and slaps in the face. Hee, how could there be such a free lunch? Lu Qing didn't say anything. He cupped his hands, turned around and walked to the stone steps. To be honest, Chu Hui did have the combat strength of a professional 7th pin. If it were another weak professional 6th pin who hadn't recovered from their internal injuries, it would be more troublesome to deal with him. However, Lu Qing's unique skills just happened to restrain him, so he could kill him within seconds. It was like fighting a fighter who had just entered the dance stage and didn't have supernatural abilities. For example, although Lu Qing couldn't detect the operation of his supernatural ability with the ice mirror, Chu Hui didn't rush at him recklessly. He would still make a move to kick him, so there was a prelude. This made it easier for Lu Qing to predict and respond in advance, so Lu Qing's strange change of direction had little effect. Similarly, the long-range attack ability of the army formula within a certain range solved the problem of how to hit him. Moreover, Chu Hui didn't have a corresponding secret defense method, and his spirit wasn't strong enough to resist a little like a professional 7th pin fighter, so the result was self-evident. In other words, it would be more difficult for Lu Qing to fight a normal professional 7th pin fighter in the dance stage than Chu Hui. Of course, the rules of the challenge tournament also limited the opponent's performance. If Chu Hui was allowed to use weapons, things would be completely different if he gave him a bow, a crossbow, or a hot weapon in the air. Watching Lu Qing leave the arena and walk to the seats, the surrounding audience fell silent. The overwhelming boos had already dissipated, leaving only the lingering sound. Booing the other party at this time was more like booing oneself. Walking along the road back to the starting point, Lu Qing saw Xianxia walking up to him. She clenched her fist and shouted with a smile, "Qing, you did a great job. You're really amazing." She was responding to the earlier "you played great," and "you played great" jokes. Smiling tacitly, Lu Qing's mood became more and more cheerful. After bumping fists with the girl, he high-fived Lin Ke, Li Mao, Kai Zhongming and the others. Everyone was very happy. Haiyuan was weaker than Sanjiang. If they could get past this hurdle, it would mean that the door to the nationals was right in front of them. I really want to celebrate, but reason tells me that I can't get carried away and look down on Haiyuan, Sun Jian said with a smile. Good that you understand. Keep a low profile and accumulate good karma. Lin Hua glared at him. While everyone was talking and laughing, Geezer sure waved his hand and said, "Let's go back to the locker room first. Don't you feel embarrassed celebrating in front of so many sad classmates?" Of course. Kai Zhongming replied without hesitation. That being said, he still followed behind the rest of the team and entered the locker room in the oppressive atmosphere that pervaded the entire venue. Well, he felt embarrassed to celebrate, but he was more afraid of provoking the impulsive classmates and being trampled by thousands of people. In the stands, Yin Shaoling was like an abandoned quail. For a moment she wanted to cry but had no tears. She wanted to celebrate but had to look around, trembling in fear under the gloomy faces of so many people. Alas. She sighed deliberately and lowered her head with Mu Jinyin, pretending to be sad. Don't hit me, we're on the same side. January 5th, 3:45 p.m. In the martial arts arena of Haiyuan Academy. Lu Qing looked at the fierce battle in the arena. He leaned over to Xianxia's ear and said in a low voice, "Your brother doesn't want me to fight today, does he?" Xianxia rolled her eyes and said, "My brother left the whole Chu Hui to you in the last match. Isn't that enough?" It was Sun Jian's turn to be the vanguard in the match against Haiyuan Academy. However, he still didn't have a good time. At the beginning of the match, he met Qingdu and Jin Sha, who were in the dance stage and supernatural ability, who were easily defeated. Then Lin Ke showed what he had learned. After 3 minutes of fierce battle, he defeated Qingdu with death sentence again. In the next 2 matches he faced 2 different professional 9th pin fighters. At first, he seized the opportunity to defeat one of them with the outburst of the dance stage. Now he was fighting hard with his exhausted body. While Lu Cheng and Xianxia were whispering to each other, Lin Ke used mercurial balance to find his opponent's weakness. He moved his arms quickly and threw out meteor force. Bang! Lu Yaqian's blood and qi churned and rushed straight to her throat. Her internal organs seemed to be trembling violently along with her muscles and tendons. She wanted to exert strength with her arms, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't raise them. She could only watch as the other party's fist hovered beside her temple. The referee raised his right hand and said with the sound of dantian, "Round 4, Lin Ke wins." Final result, Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins. Lin Ke withdrew his fist and gasped for breath. The sweat on his forehead dripped down, but there was a flash of joy in his tired eyes. Lu Cheng and the others jumped up together and high-fived each other with smiles on their faces, as if they were saying Happy New Year to each other during the spring festival. National competition were finally here. They didn't have the excitement and ecstasy after a hard battle, but they had a sense of certainty and beauty. After returning to Songqing and entering the campus, Kai Zhongming suddenly suggested with a smile, "Why don't we have a meal together? Celebrate?" Songqing University Martial Arts Club, which hadn't entered the national competition for many years, did have a reason to celebrate. "Sure, where should we go?" Lu Qing immediately agreed. After answering, he realized that he wasn't the one making the decision. He quickly looked at his master embarrassedly. Let's go. Of course we should celebrate. Don't forget to order a few bottles of good wine for this old man. I'll pay for it from the martial arts club." Geezer sure agreed with a smile. Everyone cheered and began to discuss where to have a meal. In the end, Little Ming made the final decision. "Let's go to the food stall. It's a little low class, but we can have a good celebration." After inviting Xu Rue and her shooting team, the martial arts club members went to the food stall near the old campus. They found a spacious place and ordered barbecue, dry pot, goose lips and other dishes. The table was full of food. After opening a bottle of wine for Geezer Sure, Lu Cheng and the others poured juice and raised their glasses. Under the camera, they clinked glasses with each other and shouted their emotions in unison, "National competition! National competition!" Their voices were loud and youthful. Seeing this scene, Xu Rue couldn't help but recall the beautiful life in college. She felt sad. She really wanted to be reborn to the day when she first entered the school, to savor and enjoy the past bit by bit. Once they graduated, they would go their separate ways. Many things in the past and many friendships could never be returned. In the wanton celebration, the noisy Lu Cheng and the others at the next table were dissatisfied. A young man with a tattoo on his arm came over and shouted, "What's the noise?" "Sorry, we'll be careful." Lu Cheng blushed and apologized immediately, feeling that he and the others seemed to have violated public morality. The young man looked around and sneered, "Is it enough to just pay attention?" 7 or 8 men at their table stood up together. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. "Then how about this?" With a flick of his wrist, he flung out a ball of crimson flames, causing it to explode in front of the tattooed young man. The flames leaped up and illuminated the other party's face. The tattooed young man was stunned and didn't know what to do. Until his companions came over and pretended to be mediators, they helped him back. Lu Cheng ignored the astonished eyes around him and took back his hand. He sat down again, picked up a beef skewer and started to eat. "We don't want to cause trouble, but we're not afraid of trouble." "Cheng, this doesn't seem like your style." Xianxia leaned towards him with a smile and whispered. "Why not?" Lu Cheng asked, amused. Xianxia rolled her eyes, gritted her teeth and said with a smile, "I thought you would keep a low profile and crack the cement floor to scare him back. But you directly used the supernatural ability of fire to show off. That's too flamboyant. It's not like you. The one who knows me best is Ku. In fact, at the beginning, I also considered cracking the cement floor without anyone noticing. This is relatively subtle and low-key. However, after serious consideration I gave up on this idea." Lu Cheng sighed. Xianxia blinked her eyes and asked curiously, "Why?" Lu Cheng answered bitterly, "You'll be fined if you crack the cement floor. Once bitten, twice shy." Xianxia turned her head and almost laughed out loud. The dinner lasted until 8 o'clock in the evening. When everyone was full, they raised their glasses and shouted again, "National competition! National competition!" In the following days, Lu Cheng and Xianxia entered the busy exam season. They reviewed exams, and worked together. On the 16th of January, before they had one last exam left, another event began on time. That was the drawing of lots for the final round of the National University Martial Arts competitions. 16 strong martial arts teams in 8 divisions would fight in groups. In the office of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, a group of people gathered again. They turned on their computers and connected to the internet, waiting for the live broadcast to begin. Xu Rui also came here, faithfully recording the most primitive reactions. In her opinion, Songqing University was only a little bit worse than Shanshan University, a little bit worse than the capital, and the same level as Huahai and Guangnan. They were strong enough to reach the top 4, but they didn't have any historical records and couldn't be seeded. The specific results to a large extent depended on the result of the drawing of lots. After all, there were also tough guys in the other teams. Chapter 342. In the unique broadcasting room, the hostess in an evening dress walked gracefully to the center of the room. She thanked the guests in front of her and invited Mr. Fang Jinjue, the president of the National University Martial Arts Federation, to come to the stage. The big screen behind her began to play highlights of the 16 qualified teams. Mr. Fang, you look more hale and hearty. Seeing Fang Jinjue come to her side, the hostess smiled and greeted him. Fang Jinjue, with white hair and a youthful face, was very good-looking. He smiled and said, "Little fan, I remember you said the same thing last year. Isn't that right? It means that you are getting more spirited and younger." In terms of eloquence, 10 Fang Jinjue were no match for the hostess Fan Leki. She changed the topic and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, I think this year's national competition will be more exciting than before." "How can you be so sure when the lots haven't been drawn yet?" Fang Jinjue asked back. "It's obvious. Zhen Huanxing from Guangnan and An Chaoyang from Huahai will graduate in July. Are they willing to be suppressed by Peng Leiyun and leave the University Martial Arts Circle in glory? They were the top professional 7th pin fighters in last year's national competition. This year they are making a comeback and may be able to go further. Besides, with the growth of geniuses like Huahai, Piao Yuan, Guangnan and Li Xiaoyuan, they are likely to win the championship." Fan Leki said with great familiarity. Piao Yuan from Huahai was 1 year older than Lu Cheng and Lin Quebec. "What's the difference between this and the previous 2 years?" Fang Jinjue asked knowingly, with deep wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. Fan Leki said with a smile, "But I think the gap between them and Shanbei capital has narrowed. And this year it's not just them. The martial arts clubs of Hudong University and Guiyang University were able to advance to the next round as the first in their own division, suppressing the traditional first place. It's enough to show that they're extraordinary. They're all candidates who could create an upset and enter the top 4. In addition, don't look down on the second-place team in the division. There are 2 dark horses this year. One is Mingdao University, which almost made Guangnan lose the game. The 3 He brothers have finally shown their brilliance, and there is still room for improvement in their tactical formation. In front of the computer screen, Lu Cheng and the others nodded slightly. They had all heard of Mingdao University, which had almost created a miracle. Mingdao University was not a strong martial arts school. In the past, it was almost the same as Songqing University, which was in decline. It was not until He Yifang, the eldest of the 3 He brothers, entered the school as a professional 9th pin martial artist. The following year, the twins He Erlong and He Santai also entered Mingdao University. Although they were only grade 1 at the start of the semester, they soon reached grade 9 in October. The development of the 3 brothers couldn't be compared to Lin Kei's, but they couldn't be underestimated either. He Yifang had entered the Dan stage in the second half of his second year and was now in his 3rd year. He Santai had succeeded in force concentration before the district competition, leaving only He Erlong who was still at the top of the professional 9th pin. It was true that they were not strong enough to cause trouble to Guangnan University. However, as a martial arts aristocratic family, He clan had inherited the heaven and earth mortal world sword formation. Since the beginning of their cultivation, the 3 brothers had been cultivating tacit understanding and practicing this formation. Therefore, they could barely display the beginner-level formation in front of the inhuman level. For them, 1 + 1 + 1 was definitely greater than 3 or even 4 or even 5. In the beginning, the 3 brothers who were only at the professional 9th pin level, couldn't do anything to Zhen Huanxing and were defeated by Guangnan's advantage in numbers. When He Yifang and He Santai both entered the 8th pin Dan stage and the formation's power multiplied, they stood out and almost defeated Guangnan. In short, no matter how strong their opponents were, the 3 brothers would definitely apply for the special competition system and fight side by side. This reminds me of a line. Listening to the hostess Fan Leki's introduction, Kai Zongming said with a smile, One-on-one you fight us alone. Gang fight, the three of us gang up on you. In the midst of Talker's cold joke, Fang Jingjue looked at Fan Leki and said, Mingdao is indeed a dark horse and there's a lot of room for imagination. There are still 2.5 months before the final round. Yi Erlong has the chance to enter the dance stage. If he succeeds, the Heaven and Earth Mortal World Sword formation formed by 3 professional 8th pin fighters in the dance stage is worth looking forward to. Mr. Fang, you also agree with me, don't you? Fan Leki deliberately said in a coquettish voice, and the other dark horse is even more worth looking forward to. Songqing University Martial Arts Club is listed as the favorite to win the championship. Haha, Shanbei and the capital's popularity index is 10 streets ahead of the other teams. Well, Shanbei is even leading the capital by a large margin. Mr. Fang, what do you think of Songqing University Martial Arts Club? Lu Qing showed the combat strength of a weak professional 6th pin, and Lin Kei is more than enough to be a top professional 8th pin fighter. Besides, with their speed of improvement, they'll probably go further in April or more than one step. Fang Jingjue said with a smile, I've been paying attention to Songqing University. I can responsibly say that they are definitely strong contenders for the top 4 in this national competition. As for the championship, it's not impossible. For example, Shanbei and the capital will encounter each other in the semi-finals. Mr. Fang, you really think highly of them. Fan Leki suddenly sighed and said, it's a pity that Songqing University is not a seeded team, nor is it the first in the division. They can only be ranked in the 3rd tier, and will definitely encounter the strong teams in the first 2 tiers. If they are beaten black and blue before they can advance, it will be very dangerous for them in the quarterfinals. Lu Qing, Yanjika and the others were a little worried. However, the rules of the draw had already been announced, and they had more or less accepted the reality, so it didn't affect their mood. Little fan, don't say that. You can say it the other way around. Songqing University is in the 3rd tier, and they're not the only ones who have a headache. Whichever group draws them will be the group of death. Fang Jingjue joked. You're right. Sun Jian laughed out loud. Give a thumbs up to Mr. Fang. Kai Zongming said exaggeratedly. With his arms crossed in front of his chest, Lin Kei stood quietly in the corner with a suspicious smirk on his face. Lu Cheng and Yanjika looked at each other and saw the smiles on each other's faces. Since there was no way to change the rules, then let's just enjoy the rules. We, the newborn calves, are not afraid of tigers. It's the other teams that should be afraid of them. Fan Leki and Fang Jingjue talked about the key teams with the help of the dialogue, and then briefly introduced the rules of the draw at the end. There were 3 tiers in the draw. The first tier was the top 4 of the previous competition, and they would enter groups A, B, C, and D as the seeded teams. The second tier was the first in their division, and the third tier was the rest of the teams. Now let's invite Mr. Fang to draw the first tier team for us. Fan Leki pointed at the box in front of her. The first one is the seeded team of Group A. Fang Jingjue put her hand into the box and took out a round ball. She showed it while reading aloud, Capital College. Group A, Capital College Martial Arts Club. Group B, Guangnan University Martial Arts Club. Group C, Shanbei University Martial Arts Club. Group D, Huahai University Martial Arts Club. After drawing the first tier team, Fang Jingjue cupped her hands and left the stage. Fan Leki invited another guest to draw the second tier team. Group A, Guiyang University Martial Arts Club. Group B, Jinfeng University Martial Arts Club. Group C, Juke University Martial Arts Club. Group D, Hudong University Martial Arts Club. After the second tier, there would be 8 teams in the third tier. 2 rounds would be drawn according to the order of groups A, B, C, and D. At this moment, Li Mao and the others who had been leisurely watching the show, subconsciously changed their sitting posture and slowed down their breathing. The guest stepped on the stage, exchanged a few words with Fan Leki, and put his hand into the box. Group A, Hishi University Martial Arts Club. Group B, Moshang University Martial Arts Club. Group C, Huatian University Martial Arts Club. Group D. The guest paused and suddenly became louder. Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Wow, the group of death is here. Fan Leki exclaimed. With Huahai and Hudong. Lu Qing was neither surprised nor disappointed. For this reason, it didn't matter which group they drew. Although Hudong might be a little stronger than Juke University, it was limited. Not bad. We didn't draw Shanbei again. Li Mao exhaled and the others echoed. The guest reached out his hand again for the second round of drawing. Group A, Hanbei University Martial Arts Club. Group B, Iron Capital University Martial Arts Club. Group C, Shanghai University. At this point, the final result was self-evident. Fan Leki opened her eyes wide and muttered to herself, "Supergroup of Death." The guest dutifully took out the last ball and showed it to the camera. Group D, Mingdao University Martial Arts Club. In Huahai University Martial Arts Club, after hearing the result, the tall and indifferent Xing Jingjing instinctively looked at the club president not far away. And Chaoyang had long, artistic hair. He was quite good-looking and had a bit of scholarly aura. His appearance was quite outstanding, but his eyes were always sleepy and slightly squinted, as if he was dozing off. Songqing University. He only repeated the name in a low voice. Beside him, Piao Yuan, who looked like a monk with a shaved head, grinned. Songqing University Hadong Mingdao. I'm really looking forward to it. His facial features were ferocious and he unconsciously changed the order of the draw. Inside Hadong University the atmosphere was quite tense. Obviously no one had expected to draw a supergroup of death. The leader, Yu Ji, shook all the fat on his body and clenched his fist. Songqing University, he looked like a sumo wrestler. His fat was piled up but not soft. It looked very greasy and bouncy. In a male dormitory of Mingdao University, He Yifang and He Erlong looked at each other with a dignified expression. He Santai lowered his head and typed furiously on the screen of his mobile phone, engrossed in the game. Few supergroup of death. Sun Jian exhaled a mouthful of foul air. What are you afraid of? We've already beaten Shanbei. Do you think they're stronger than Shanbei? Lu Qing looked around and took the initiative to speak. Since Shanbei is not stronger than us, we have a chance to win. Since we have a chance to win, there's no need to feel disappointed. Anyway, it's our first time to participate in this competition. We're not afraid of losing face. Didn't we say before that there's only one word for this national competition? He paused and then shouted together with Lin Kei and Yanjika, "Fight! Fight as hard as you can." After shouting the slogan, Lu Qing saw that Xu Rui was filming something else. He hurriedly held Yanjika's hand and made eye contact with her. He didn't hide his expectation of facing a strong opponent. This April, the national competition. Chapter 343. The cold star was hanging high in the sky, and the wind on the lake was chilly. Lu Qing pulled Yanjika's left hand and put it into his warm pocket. Thinking about going to the capital in April and the national competition, I feel a little excited. After watching the lot drawing ceremony, he couldn't calm down and urged his little fairy, who was in a similar state to him, to take a walk by the lake. There are still more than 2 months to go. No matter how excited you are today, it's useless. Yanjika pursed her lips and teased him. I know. But some reactions can't be controlled. Lu Qing took a deep breath of the fresh, moist air and replied with a big smile. After this wave of excitement, I'll relax and practice martial arts during the winter break. I'll strive to make greater progress before the national competition. Lu Qing's body was not tired, but his mind was. He urgently needed a break to relax his mental tension so that he could set off again. You're worth teaching. Yanjika pretended to be an old man. She looked up at him and said, I'll go to Jiangnan on the 3rd day of the 1st lunar month. I'll stay at my grandfather's house for a few days and see if I can help you get information about the 9 words formula, if it's not a secret of the sect. I didn't mention it, but Ku still remembered it. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes and couldn't stop smiling. He felt so warm in his heart, as if he had drunk a bowl of hot soup in a world of ice and snow. He laughed and said, It doesn't matter if it's a secret of the sect. When I become the son-in-law of Shushan Study, I'll be half a family member. Then I'll be able to get access to things that don't involve the unique skills of the fighting sect. You're dreaming. Yanjika rolled her eyes and glanced at her boyfriend. He didn't know if she was saying that he was dreaming of becoming the son-in-law of Shushan Study or that he could get access to the secrets of the sect other than the unique skills of the fighting sect. As a person, you have to think about the future. Only then can you live a meaningful life, Lu Qing said happily. Holding the girl's hand, they slowly walked forward. Beside them was the calm and sorrowful surface of the lake. He paused for a moment and then let his thoughts run wild. When the time comes, I'll have to make a trip to Moshang to wish my master and senior sister a happy new year. I'll also burn incense for all the patriarchs. I'll take the opportunity to learn a few more unique skills of the ice sect. If I'm lucky, I might even gain something else. For example, Senior Queen of Thought and the others' insights on the cultivation of the army formula, the forwarding formula, and the swordsman formula, as well as the latest research results on cultivation. Yo, now you know how to go to the ice god sect to pay a New Year's visit? Yanjika joked with a smile. Of course, it's all thanks to your good teaching, Coach Yen. Lu Qing praised sincerely. Now that he had formally become Lu Cheng's disciple, he couldn't just make a phone call to say hello like last year. Cuckoo had repeatedly reminded him about this. It's good that you understand. How are you going to thank me? Humph, you will definitely say that there is no need for thanks between us. Xianxia's eyebrows relaxed and her eyes lit up. How about a kiss or a massage? Lu Qing suggested a way to express his gratitude. Xianxia glared at him, feeling both annoyed and amused. Are you thanking me or taking advantage of me? How can you call it taking advantage when it's between a boyfriend and girlfriend? Lu Qing chuckled. Before Xianxia could blush, he suddenly remembered something and hurriedly asked, Ku, didn't you say that the last exam was originally on the 19th, but it was moved forward to tomorrow? Yeah, what's wrong? Xianxia blinked and looked at her boyfriend blankly. Have you told Empress Dowager about this? Lu Qing asked. Not yet. Xianxia vaguely sensed her boyfriend's intention. She looked at him suspiciously and asked, Why do you ask this? My exam is finished tomorrow. Why don't we go to Gaofen for a couple of days and go back on the 20th? I didn't have the chance to accompany you during the youth tournament. Lu Qing suggested excitedly. After the youth tournament, he had planned to date his little fairy girl in Gaofen for a couple of days. However, he was summoned to Mozhang by Geezer Shi. Xianxia looked up and replied in a light tone, Yes, I am. Okay. During the New Year's Day holiday, she and Qing didn't go out for a date because of the exam. Seeing Xianxia agree without hesitation, Lu Qing was very excited. He hurriedly said, Let's sit over there. I'll change the tickets and book a hotel. You can ask Gu Shuang if she has any good recommendations for Gaofen. Okay. Xianxia took out a tissue and handed it to her boyfriend. After cleaning up, they sat down next to each other and started to work. Suddenly, Xianxia hesitated and said, Xuanhuan said that her house is empty and she invited us to stay there. She was used to calling her best friends by their nickname in front of Lu Qing. That's not good. I feel uncomfortable. Lu Qing subconsciously found a reason to object. Xianxia tapped on the screen and keyboard a few times. She turned her head and looked at her boyfriend with a faint smile. She puffed up her cheeks and snorted. Qing, you've changed. You weren't like this before. What's changed? Lu Qing was confused, his face full of confusion. You wouldn't answer like this before. You would say, Do you want to go? If you want to go, then let's stay at Gu Shuang's house. Xianxia smiled and raised her chin. Her long white down jacket made her look very pretty. Lu Qing was almost speechless. He laughed and said, I'm just giving you my opinion. I'm not making a decision. In the end, I still have to listen to you. Xianxia combed her long black hair that was blown by the wind and snorted. I think you have a ghost in your heart. For some reason, when she said, have a ghost in my heart, she suddenly blushed. She pretended to look to the side and change the topic. Actually, I'm so stupid. Why did I ask Xuanhuan what good recommendations there are in Gaofen? What? She doesn't know these? That's impossible. Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. That's not it. Think about it. If I told her that I was going to Gaofen with you instead of sleeping in her house, what would she think? She would definitely think the wrong way. How embarrassing. Xianxia pouted and explained with slight annoyance. A girl's mind is really full of twists and turns. Lu Qing thought for a while and said, Why don't you sleep in her house and I'll stay in a hotel outside? Or tell her that your period is here. According to Xianxia's recent cycle, it would be tomorrow. Xianxia pursed her lips and tilted her head. She suddenly burst into laughter, as if hundreds of flowers were blooming in front of Lu Qing. Her eyes were gentle and her dimples were enchanting. I've already told Xuanhuan that. Already told Gu Shuang about my period? Lu Qing's mouth was half open. He was both angry and amused. I was almost tricked by Xianxia again. Humph. You asked me to ask her. You made me laugh so much. Xianxia said with a red face. That little girl Gu Shuang actually asked me to take precautions and asked me when I had sex with Cheng. Without waiting for an answer, she said, Xuang said she would treat us to a meal at a club. The dishes there are in the top 3 in Gaofen. Okay. Lu Qing agreed easily. He handed the phone to the girl and said, 2 rooms with big beds, Mingqi International Hotel. He had a good impression of this 5-star hotel. Let's share a room. Xianxia hesitated for a while and then blushed when she saw Lu Qing's surprised eyes. She turned her head and said, You will definitely use the excuse of rubbing my belly to squeeze into a room, won't you? Won't you? Yes. I'll definitely do that. Lu Qing smiled and gave her a way out. Of course he did think so. If you want to squeeze into one room, it's a waste to book 2 rooms. Xianxia had an expression of "I was right, wasn't I?" But she was biting her lips lightly and looking at the night sky with a bright moon and few stars. After the exam on the 17th, Lu Qing had a lunch with Zhao Chang, Kai Zongming, Qiu Zhigao and others. In the afternoon he and Xianxia set off on their journey back to Xing province. But their destination was not Xiaoshan but Gaofun. They arrived at 7 p.m. and met Gu Shuang, who was dressed fashionably in black. They went to the private club near Weiyang Park in Gaofun with her. The clubhouse was luxuriously decorated and illuminated by bright lights. The style of the clubhouse exuded the word luxury. Nouveau riche style. Xianxia commented in Lu Cheng's ear in a low voice. As long as the dishes are good. Lu Cheng smiled back. Gu Shuang, who was watching them from the side, said in annoyance, "Can you two stop showing off your love every second? You have to understand the feelings of a lovelorn child." In front of her was a waiter who led the way. "Lovelorn? You dumped him, didn't you? How many times have you dumped him?" Xianxia teased her best friend. At this time, Lu Qing noticed that many of the guests passing by were martial artists with vigorous qi and blood. Some of them were even introverted. They were in groups of 3 to 5 and seemed to know each other. After passing through the hall they went somewhere. So many people today? Gu Shuang also noticed something was wrong. This was a private club. The waiter smiled sweetly and said, "Miss Gu, this is a gathering of the martial arts circle in Gaofun. As you know, our boss is very close to the martial arts circle." A gathering of the martial arts circle in Gaofun? Gu Shuang glanced at Lu Qing subconsciously. Her best friend's boyfriend was the champion of the youth tournament. It's almost the new year. Every circle will have a gathering. The waiter kept his mouth shut and didn't say more. It's almost the new year? There's still half a month to go. Gu Shuang shook her head in confusion. At this moment they heard a loud chatter. Looking back, they saw a group of martial artists coming in from the entrance of the club. They were surrounding an exceptionally handsome young man and were talking about something. This young man was no stranger to Lu Qing. He was Zhang Zhutong of the Divine Fire Club. Oh, it's a small world. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh secretly. This scene was very similar to the first time he met Zhang Zhu. Both of them were watching from the perspective of a bystander. However, that was then and this was now. His mentality and feelings were completely different from the last time he met Zhang Zhu. Zhang Zhutong listened to the people around him with a smile on his face. Occasionally he would turn his head and say a few words. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something and turned his head subconsciously. He was surprised to see a familiar face and the figure he couldn't forget standing quietly in the dim light. Facing his gaze, Lu Qing smiled slightly and nodded. Chapter 344. Lu Qing nodded and turned around leisurely. He held Xianxia's hand and continued to follow the waiter. Lu Qing didn't know much about the martial arts circle in Gaofun, so he didn't need to greet them or delay the late dinner. "Brother Zhutong, what are you looking at?" Beside Zhang Zhutong, a pretty girl with flat bangs asked curiously. She moved her head closer and followed Zhang Zhutong's line of sight. However, all she saw was a couple holding hands and disappearing around the corner. Apart from the girl's beautiful back, there was nothing special about her. No, nothing. Zhang Zhutong withdrew his gaze and gave a negative answer subconsciously. The others didn't care about this little episode. They still surrounded him, chatting and performing. Zhang Zhutong walked a few steps and couldn't help but look back, even though he knew the girl had already left. He's back? It's winter vacation now. But why didn't he come back to Xiaoshan? What is he going to do in Gaofun? Is he just passing by or is he trying to get involved? Under the warm light, the waiter set the table and filled the cups with tea. He pushed the door open and waited for the dishes to be served. Who are you kidding? How can there be a year-end party this early? Gu Shuang complained. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. You and Zhang Zhutong are quite fated. Xianxia took the opportunity to tease her boyfriend. Lu Qing deliberately sighed and said, "It's a small world." The two started to chat. After a few minutes, Gu Shuang ended the call. She raised her eyebrows and gossiped with great interest. "I knew it's a year-end party for the martial arts circle in Gaofun." "What kind of party is it?" Xianxia asked cooperatively. Gu Shuang laughed. "Gaofun is a sister city with the famous European city Brutale, right? The mayor of Brutale is here with people from all walks of life for a business visit, including the martial arts delegation. Accordingly, we have to organize some martial artists to receive them. The Divine Fire Club has a good relationship with the management, so they're in charge of this." "What do you mean by, our Gaofun city?" Shuang, you've just moved to Gaofun a few years ago. Have you forgotten that you're from Xiaoshan?" Xianxia laughed and teased her best friend before getting back to the topic. They're gathering people in the circle for this? Yes, this is a good thing. Maybe we can get some cooperation opportunities. Xuanhuan explained casually. She then urged excitedly. Ku, why don't you ask your Cheng to join in the fun? He can show off in front of the foreigners. It's so. What? I'm not from Gaofan. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He rejected Xuanhuang's suggestion without hesitation. Xianxia pursed her lips and chuckled. I've heard that brute ale is one of the origins of martial arts in Europe. There are many powerful masters everywhere. I'm sure there are many good fighters among the young people there. Don't you want to see the fighting skills of a foreign country? Kind of. But we'll have plenty of chances in the future. There's no need to join in this boring fun. Lu Qing explained his thoughts. The mainstream martial arts system in Europe and America was essentially the same as in China, but the details were different. Both systems focused on body refining and controlling the mind. However, they didn't have force concentration or body refining Big Dan. Instead, they took a different path. When they reached the physical invulnerability stage, they trained the root pulp internally and connected with heaven and earth. What do you mean by, we'll have plenty of chances in the future? Xianxia tilted her head and asked in confusion. Lu Qing grinned. When you study abroad, I'll definitely go there from time to time. Maybe I'll even stay for a while. There'll be plenty of chances to see foreign martial arts. You're thinking so far ahead? Xianxia's eyes lit up. Stop. Can you two stop showing off your love? Xuanhuan, who was ignored, raised her hand and said, Can't we have a nice chat? No. Lu Qing and Xianxia looked at each other and answered in unison. In a hall, Zhang Zhutong was thinking about the startled glance and Lu Cheng's sudden appearance in Gaofan's place. He was absent-minded for a moment until someone waved a hand in front of his eyes and pulled him back to reality. Brother Zhutong, what's wrong? Are you worried about tomorrow? A pretty girl with flat bangs asked with concern. Hearing this question, the other martial artists in the gathering all looked over. Not really worried. I'm more looking forward to it, Zhang Zhutong answered with a smile. This kind of martial arts exchange was different from the normal challenge tournament. They had to consider the issue of face. What the higher-ups meant was that it would not be good to lose too much, but it would not be good to win too much either. The selected martial artists had to be representative and hierarchical to ensure that they only had a slight advantage over the opponent. Yeah, I've only seen foreign martial arts competitions on the internet. I haven't really seen one yet, a martial artist beside them chimed in. Amidst the echoes, the pretty girl with flat bangs reminded him with concern, We don't have to worry about the inhuman mighty ones since the seniors will deal with them. But I heard that there's a talented young man named O'Block in the group. He's only 20 years old, but he's already as strong as a top professional 7th pin or a weaker professional 6th pin fighter. The evaluation system abroad was different from that in China, so it was impossible to compare them directly by rank. After losing to Lu Qing, Zhang Zhutong had been enduring hardships for half a year. He had made great progress in his martial arts and was considered to be one of the best in the 7th pin. However, after watching the battle between Lu Qing and Peng Liyun, he was shocked again. It took him 2 or 3 weeks to recover. When he confidently called for a gathering in the martial arts circle to welcome the Brudale delegation, he met Lu Qing unexpectedly. His confidence was shaken. I'll try my best. There's still a chance to win. Even if I lose, I won't lose too badly, Zhang Zhutong answered carefully. While they were discussing the details of the next day in another room, Lu Qing and Xianxia were tasting the top 3 dishes in Xing province that Xuanhuan had mentioned. They felt that Lu Qing lived up to his reputation. They ate so much that they couldn't wait to finish everything. For example, the Kung Pao chicken. The meat was tender but not rigid. It was smooth and fragrant. After eating and drinking, they were driven back to the hotel by Xuanhuan and checked in. It was already dark. Lu Qing and Xianxia opened the door and turned on the lights, hand in hand. This was the first time they had slept in the same bed without another room as a cover. It was the first time they had slept in the same bed. The light was dim and the warmth was overflowing. They felt like a couple returning home together. Nowadays the lights in hotels are getting dimmer and dimmer. You can't save electricity like this, Lu Qing exclaimed. Xianxia was about to say something when her expression changed slightly. She lowered her eyes and looked a little pained. You're on your period? Lu Qing asked with concern. Yes. Xianxia was used to discussing this kind of thing with her boyfriend. I'll go change my clothes, brush my teeth and wash my face first. Okay, I'll wash the pot first and make you some brown sugar ginger tea. Lu Qing's hands and feet quickly got busy. After Xianxia finished the tea, got into bed and curled up on her side. He quickly brushed his teeth, took a shower, changed into his pajamas and lay down beside her. He put his hand over her thin clothes, slid a little into her pants and pressed it against her lower abdomen. "You're quite self-aware." Xianxia praised him with a smile. She didn't feel any pain. Before her voice died away, she suddenly exclaimed, "Cheng, why is your hand so warm?" This is the breakthrough of my power of blaze. Ever since its second awakening, I've been tempering and controlling it. I want it to be used in daily life like the frost supernatural ability. Well, after a few months of hard work, I finally succeeded. How does it feel?" "Yeah," said Lu Qing proudly, showing off. "It's meaningless to have a supernatural power without a domestic version." 32 likes. Xianxia slightly pursed her lips with a faint smile on her face. Her voice became very soft. "Qing, where are we going to play tomorrow?" Lu Qing was in a good mood after being praised. He smiled and said, "Two plans. First, we'll go to the wildlife park in the north of the city. Second, we'll take bus number 7, number 19, number 35, number 56 and number 79 to relax and wander through the most unique streets of Gaofun. We'll try the various delicacies along the way and slowly savor this city." "I choose the second plan," Xianxia said without hesitation. "It sounds fun, I knew it." Lu Cheng's heart was full of tacit understanding. While chatting and warming, Xianxia slowly fell asleep. Her brows were knitted sometimes as if she was enduring the pain in her dream. Lu Qing tenderly reached out and smoothed her brows. As the night grew darker, he propped himself up and kissed her on the corner of her mouth. "Good night, my dear." Her delicate body fell into his arms without any lust. The next morning Lu Qing woke up on time. Looking at the dark sky outside the window, he felt the girl's body curled up in his arms. Breathing in the warm fragrance that pervaded the air, he only felt his heart was calm and peaceful, filled with joy. He hugged Xianxia tightly and suddenly saw her wake up. He heard her ask in confusion, "What time is it?" 5:30. "You go back to sleep. I'm going to do my morning exercise. I'll bring you breakfast when I come back." Lu Qing replied softly. Xianxia retreated a little reluctantly. Suddenly she was stopped by something hard. Her body was slightly stiff. Lu Qing smiled embarrassedly and said, "Some reactions can't be controlled just because you know it. As long as you're healthy, you'll be like this in the morning, not to mention when you have a little fairy sleeping beside you." He repeated what he said the day before. "I feel that you guys are so weird." Xianxia softened her body and muttered. She struggled to get up and said, "I'm going to do my morning exercise too. It doesn't hurt as much." Just as they were kissing and saying good morning to each other, the delegation from the famous European city of Brutale arrived at the airport in Gaofun. Chapter 345. After the morning exercise, Lu Qing and Xianxia went back to the hotel. They planned to have breakfast on the bus ride to Gaofun. After taking a shower and tidying himself up, Lu Qing waited for a while and saw Xianxia coming out of the bathroom. She had just changed her hairstyle. Her sideways bangs hung down, which made her eyes and eyebrows more beautiful. Her temperament was purer, gentler, and radiant. A long white down jacket, black leggings, fluffy snow boots, a light pink knitted hat and delicate silver earrings entered Lu Cheng's eyes one by one, making him feel youthful and quick-witted. Even though he had long been accustomed to his girlfriend's appearance, he couldn't help but take a look at her again and again. "Do I look good?" Xianxia lowered her eyebrows and asked with a little pride. "Did you put on makeup?" Lu Qing stared at the girl's pink and glossy lips. As a straight man, the most common way to tell if a girl had put on makeup was to look at her lipstick. If it was thick, it meant heavy makeup. If it was light, it meant light makeup. If he couldn't tell, it meant no makeup. Of course, with Coach Yan's teaching and daily influence, his knowledge had increased day by day. He was no longer so superficial. "I did. Today is our big date. How can I not take it seriously?" Xianxia raised her chin slightly and looked at him with radiance. Hearing this, Lu Qing laughed out loud. He really wanted to grab his little fairy just like that and give her a good bite. Xianxia seemed to have sensed something from his eyes. She hurriedly took a step back and waved her hand weakly. "Makeup is troublesome. Don't mess around." Yes, yes. Lu Qing put away his thoughts and said, "I just feel that your face is too thin." I'm fat." Xianxia puffed up her cheeks. "Look, I'm fat face ko. Hold it in. I can't hold it in. I can't hold it in." Lu Qing suddenly took a step forward, pulled the girl over and kissed her. "You." Xianxia's protest stopped abruptly and was blocked back in her mouth. She clenched her fist and hit Lu Qing a few times. But as they kissed, she slowly closed her eyes and hugged her boyfriend back. She forgot about the makeup. They hooked their lips and kissed lightly. Their breathing gradually became irregular. Are you still not going out? As the atmosphere became more and more intense, Xianxia tilted her head back, glanced at Lu Cheng with tears in her eyes, and broke free from his embrace. Actually, it's not bad to laze around in the room all day. Lu Cheng looked at the girl's moist lips and smiled. Pervert. Xianxia cursed, feeling both annoyed and amused. She trotted into the bathroom and quickly touched up her makeup. Then she stood by the door and waved, "Let's go, let's go." All right. Lu Cheng walked over and held the girl's hand. They walked out of the room in the hotel. They strolled to the nearest bus stop and waited for bus number 7 to arrive. Since it was the weekend, there weren't many commuters. Even though there were quite a few old people, the bus wasn't crowded. Lu Cheng put in a coin and held his little fairy's hand. They found a seat at the back of the bus and sat down. The bus swayed in xuanhuan as it traveled through the city. The scenery on both sides of the bus gradually changed from the original high-rise buildings to the past. Buildings built in the last century appeared in front of Lu Cheng and Xianxia's eyes. These were all factory areas of enterprises in the past. Later, when the factories moved out, they used the vacated land to build a residential area for employees. Lu Cheng had done his homework. He pointed at the scenery outside the window and said to the girl, "There is a university and a high school nearby. It's quite lively around here. Let's go eat a private home cuisine." Private home cuisine? Xianxia asked in surprise. Private home cuisine for breakfast? When it came to dates, she wasn't the type to simply enjoy them. After the first few times when Lu Cheng was making plans, she would help to look over and give her own opinions. She was very involved. However, last night, her stomach really hurt so badly that she didn't have the energy to discuss. "My private home cuisine is in quotation marks. You'll know when we get there," Lu Cheng said with a smile. The number 7 bus stopped at the bus stop. He hurriedly pulled Ku up and said, "We're here. It's time to get off." Xianxia was full of curiosity and expectation. She followed Lu Cheng like a little deer with innocent eyes. They got off the bus with light steps, crossed the crosswalk and entered an old residential area. In the residential area, Lu Cheng led her around and around, asking passers-by where building number 4 was from time to time. After passing row after row of buildings, they finally found their well-hidden destination. There was no elevator here. They walked along the corridor and came to the second floor. They saw the door on the left open and smelled the alluring aroma from inside. Noodle house. Xianxia sniffed and breathed in the smell in the air. Yes, this old lady used to be the chef of Gaoyan Noodle House. She retired and moved here with her husband. Under the encouragement of her children, she bought the house opposite and started a noodle house without a signboard. Well, there are many similar places in the surrounding residential areas, mainly for students and teachers who don't like to eat in the cafeteria. It's impossible to find it without a familiar guide. Lu Cheng introduced the private home cuisine in front of them. Gaoyan Noodle House was a time-honored restaurant in Gaofen. It was the kind of restaurant that was recommended by tourists. Unfortunately, it got worse and worse. The locals didn't like to go there anymore. Only tourists could coax them. Xianxia opened her eyes wide and blurted out, "How did you find it?" "Xuanhuan didn't mention it yesterday. When I was making a guide, I saw someone mention it on the internet. I remembered Fatty Jiang said that Huang Cheng was studying in the nearby University of Technology. So I found his QQ and asked for details." Lu Cheng answered with a little complacency, "The old lady has a weird temper. Not only does she not please the customers, but she also gives them a hard time. She will give you the order of special dishes, noodles, and soup. If you don't follow her order, she will be very unhappy." The weirder her temper, the better the business? Xianxia bit her lower lip and smiled. Yes, people are so cheap. Maybe they think that the more temperamental a person is, the more capable he is. Lu Cheng said self-deprecatingly. He pulled Xianxia into the house. There were only a few tables in the 2 bedrooms and the living room. The old lady was sitting in a chair, watching TV and ignoring the door. Their hair was already gray, but they were still hale and hearty. Because breakfast time was different, Lu Cheng and Xianxia didn't wait. They each ordered 2 bowls of noodles and 10 dumplings. The old lady didn't say anything. She went into the kitchen and fiddled for a while. Then she brought the food over and said sternly, "First eat the beef noodles, then the boiled vegetables, then the dumplings, and finally the xianxia noodles. Drink the soup." "There's really an order?" Xianxia said in a low voice when the old lady returned to her seat. The two started to eat with great interest. They ate step by step according to the order and felt that it was really good. Especially after the beef noodles, the boiled vegetables were really refreshing and sweet. Lu Qing came in high spirits and left satisfied. He looked at his phone, looking for the bus stop of Route 19. At this time, Xianxia's eyes turned up. After thinking for a few seconds, she suggested excitedly, "Qing, why don't we not follow the guide? I feel that you will be very tired." "How can we do it if we don't follow the guide?" Lu Qing asked in confusion. Xianxia smiled like a flower and said, "Let's be casual. We'll get on whichever bus we see. We'll get off wherever we see. Anyway, we don't need to think in advance. We don't need to care about the result. We'll just do whatever we want and see where we end up." "Is this a fateful tour?" Lu Qing was excited. He didn't object, and it was impossible for him to object. It seemed to be quite interesting. The two of them walked out of the neighborhood and stopped at a random signboard. They waited for a bus that they didn't know which route it was. After getting on the bus, they continued to sit in the back row, hand in hand, looking at the street outside as they retreated. They talked leisurely and chatted. When they felt like it, they would casually find a bus stop and walk around nearby. Then, by fate, they would board the first bus stop they saw at the first bus stop they saw. They didn't think about where they would end up in the end, nor did they think about the purpose of the next stop or what they would eat later. They let go of their minds and wandered around leisurely, coming and going slowly. From time to time they would put their heads together and take a selfie. The commercial district, a park, a bridge by the river, a Buddhist temple. Unconsciously, they wandered around a lot of places and decided to have lunch at the next restaurant they saw. Lu Qing and Xianxia passed through the alley and came to the main street. They saw a cafe at the same time. "Cafe? Do you want to eat there?" Lu Qing asked with a smile. "Why not? There's food in the cafe." Xianxia answered with a relaxed body and mind. The cafe's business was quite bad, and the environment was not bad. Lu Qing and Xianxia ordered a lot of food and ate happily. They were surprised to find that the quality was quite good. When Lu Qing was paying the bill, Xianxia put her hands on the glass counter and casually asked the proprietress, "Your family is doing well. Why is your business so average?" The proprietress was a very charming lady. She smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know. Maybe the residents here don't like the Western style. Do you live nearby?" "No." Xianxia answered in a light tone. "Then are you here for business?" The proprietress had plenty of time to chat because the business was bad. "No, we're just passing by," Xianxia said with a smile. "Okay." The proprietress confirmed that Lu Qing had paid the bill and asked casually, "Just passing by. Where are you going?" "Where are we going?" Lu Qing and Xianxia were stunned for a moment. Then they turned their heads and looked at each other. "We don't know." After saying this, the two of them held hands and turned to walk to the door. "Where are we going?" The proprietress was at a loss, watching their backs disappear into the street outside. Lu Qing and Xianxia got on and off the bus casually without thinking about the past or the future. They enjoyed the purest, most carefree and most leisurely present moment. In the vast sea of people, they only felt that they had each other. Wherever they went, there was beauty and certainty. The clouds were leisurely and the bus was swaying. Lu Qing and Xianxia were sometimes quiet and sometimes excited, walking freely in Gaofun. When the lights were turned on, they held back their laughter and got on the bus again. They didn't know where they were going. The reason why they held back their laughter was that the restaurant they chose was very bad, which left a deep impression on them. However, even if it was a failure, it was still a happy thing to eat together. "Where are we now?" Lu Qing looked at the darkened scenery outside the window and asked. "How would I know?" Xianxia answered with a smile. Suddenly, her eyes lit up as she saw a familiar building in the distance. The Beetle Stadium. Gaofun Martial Arts Stadium. After a long day we're finally here. What a coincidence. Lu Qing exclaimed in surprise. The lights are on inside, so there's probably a competition. Here he won the first championship in his life. Yes. Xianxia nodded happily. She pulled Lu Qing to the back door of the bus and waited for the next stop. "Let's go. I'll treat you to the competition," she said cheerfully with a raised voice. In the Gaofun Martial Arts Stadium, the lights were bright and the atmosphere was heavy. Zhang Zhutong looked solemnly at the arrogant Oblak in the arena. His blonde hair fluttered in the wind as he walked up the stone steps. Chapter 346. So annoying. It's not open to the public. Xianxia pouted as she tried to buy a ticket but failed. Lu Qing glanced at the gate guarded by security guards and encouraged her with a smile. "Do you want me to lead you to do something bad? Find a place to crawl in? What kind of competition is not open to the public?" No, I'm a law-abiding good kid. Xianxia had come here on a whim. Seeing that she couldn't enter to watch the competition, she gave up the idea. She rolled her eyes and said, "There is a dessert shop here that is very good. Shuang and I have tried it. Their feng shui is very good. Come on, let me take you there." Lu Qing said without thinking, "You can't eat cold food during your period, right? I can watch you eat it." Xianxia raised her chin with a smile. "And there's cake and stuff. All right then. Lead the way, big sister." Lu Qing had forgotten his original purpose and said with a smile on his face, "Today was a casual day. Follow your heart and follow your fate. Oh, block wins. Block wins. Oh, block wins." Similar words echoed in the stadium again and again, making the selected audience more and more depressed. However, they still had to pluck up their spirits and cheer for their opponent in line with the friendship between the two cities. Zhang Zhutong's body was still trembling and his face was pale. It seemed that he had not only consumed a lot of energy, but also suffered a certain injury. He broke free from the nightmare of failure and glanced at the rostrum. Governor Luo Zhong, Mayor Chao Jincheng, and the others looked gloomier than the other. Zhang Zhutong's heart sank. He could only hope that the other fighters could defeat their strong opponents and save his face. Even if he couldn't win, he couldn't lose miserably. However, he also knew that the possibility of his wish coming true was very slim. It was all Oblak's fault for not following the rules. He actually fought 3 matches in a row. Not only did he defeat Han Zhifei and Qiu Shan, but after a long battle he even managed to injure himself with a single move. Originally, it was supposed to be a different fighter after each match. Now that the strongest fighters on his side had failed, the Gaofan martial arts group would have to face the following fighters from Brudale. Zhang Zhutong gave up the starting position and prepared to fight against the third young fighter from Bertal's delegation. He wanted to win and keep the situation under control. However, he encountered an unreasonable guy. The most likely possibility was that all the young fighters on his side would be defeated. Zhang Zhutong thought bitterly. Oblak actually had a freakish physical strength that exceeded his own level of physical strength. Below the inhuman stage, abnormal physical strength is too advantageous. Another martial artist beside him sighed. Hearing this, Zhang Zhutong wanted to respond with a polite smile, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not squeeze out a smile. "Is it delicious?" Xianxia rested her chin on one hand and looked at Lu Qing with sparkling eyes. Lu Qing unhurriedly scooped a spoonful of Snow White and put it in his mouth. He savored it for a few seconds before saying, "It's delicious. It smells like milk powder when I was a kid. But this one is cold and tastes better. I've appraised it. It's not bad." Xianxia smiled proudly. She poked a piece of cake with her spoon and ate it slowly. Both of them hadn't eaten enough because of the terrible dinner, but now they had a good appetite. Outside the window, the city lights were shining brightly, reflecting their shadows on the glass. The night was getting darker. At the gate of the Beetle Stadium, the security guards made way for them. Governor Luo Zhong, Mayor Chao Jincheng of Gaofan, and others accompanied Mayor Brudale Dawkins and his entourage out. They chatted politely as they waited for the vehicles to approach. At the edge of the delegation, the tall Oblak stretched his arms and legs and looked around casually. His blonde hair shone brilliantly under the light, just like the magnificent view of the sea at sunrise. Coupled with his handsome facial features and aggressive fighting style, he was widely known as the Son of the Sun. "The young martial artists of Gaofan are mediocre," said the black-haired Charles beside Oblak in the Brudale language. Oblak replied with a smile, "I heard that this is only the second-class city in China." He was implying that he agreed with Charles's assessment. "I'm disappointed." The brown-haired Johnny spread his hands. "To be honest, I feel the same way. After 3 rounds it's still not enough. In Chinese it's like..." Oblak flexed his arms and said in a foreign language, "Enough. Not enough. Not enough." The translator beside them listened awkwardly. He didn't know what to say, so he just maintained a professional smile. Not far away, Zhang Zhutong watched them talk arrogantly. Although he didn't understand what they were saying, he could still feel the contempt in their words. His mood became even more gloomy and depressed. He glanced at the Governor Luo Zhong and the Mayor of Gaofan, Chao Jincheng. They were both forcing smiles. "It's getting late. Let's go. There won't be any more buses." Lu Qing pointed at the night sky outside. Xianxia followed his movement and looked around. She nodded lightly and said, "Okay." Today's random trip started with the bus. Of course, both of them wanted to end with the bus. After paying the bill with their phones, they pushed the door open and felt the chill of the winter night. Their spirits were instantly refreshed. Walking along the edge of the stadium, they strolled slowly to the bus stop in front of them. They only glanced at the hustle and bustle at the gate. Xianxia was in a good mood. She waved her hands and skipped along. Lu Qing followed her at a steady pace. What a beautiful day. The girl suddenly paused and looked up at the faint stars in the sky covered by the light. She closed her eyes and praised as if she was sleep-talking. The smile on her face was faint but didn't fade away. I think so too. Lu Qing held her hand. Xianxia opened her eyes and said as if she hadn't had enough. It would be perfect if there was a firework ending at the end. Don't buy it. I mean, it's up to fate. Lu Qing thought for a while and chuckled. He suddenly pulled back his hand and pointed behind the girl. Look, there it is. Xianxia was surprised and happy. She turned around abruptly and looked behind her. However, the night sky was still and the lights were quiet. There were no fireworks. She was stunned. When she was about to speak, she suddenly saw a ball of crystal white light fly into the air. Then a red and violent fireball chased after it. Bang! The cold light exploded first and ice crystals fell. Bang! The flame exploded and shone on the ice crystals, making them reflect the clear light. In the air, the fireworks bloomed. The flowing light was dreamy and beautiful, illuminating the faces of Lu Qing and Xianxia. See, tonight's ending fireworks? Lu Qing laughed. Xianxia's astonishment turned into surprise. The fireworks reflected in her eyes were so beautiful that people didn't dare to look directly at them. She bit her pink lips with her pearly white teeth and said with sparkling eyes, "Cheng, what should I do? I want to kiss you." The fireworks attracted the attention of the crowd at the gate. Oblak was stunned for a moment. Then his face lit up with joy. Superpower, a good superpower? He looked at the corner of the square not far away and saw Lu Qing and Xianxia, who were dating. His eyes flashed and he said excitedly, "I'll find that superpower user and spar with him. Just as well, I haven't had enough fun before." Thump, thump, thump. He strode forward and dashed towards Lu Qing at an extremely fast speed. The translator in the suit was shocked and stood there dumbfounded. He didn't know whether to follow or what. Oblak's teacher, the leader of the martial arts delegation, Mason Walker, shook his head and laughed. He instructed Janice beside him, "You go be the referee. Don't let Oblak hurt his opponent." This would affect the friendship between the two cities. The bear-like Janice didn't dare to delay. He stretched his long legs and chased after Oblak. Charles, Johnny, and the others followed with great interest, intending to watch from the sidelines. That superpower user was just trying to please his girlfriend on a date, and Oblak had set his sights on him. What bad luck. Zhang Zhutong, who had noticed their movements, looked blankly in the direction of the fireworks. His pupils suddenly shrank. Lu Qing, who was waiting for his little fairy to initiate a kiss, felt the ground shake. He instinctively stepped forward and shielded Xianxia behind him. He saw a young blonde, blue-eyed foreign man running towards him with heavy footsteps. He felt several explosive points exploding on his wrists, arms, and torso. These explosive points seemed to connect into a strange tree. Strong, very strong. Lu Qing squinted his eyes and got into a stance. In his mind, he visualized a frozen river, a snowy plain, and a huge red sun hanging high in the sky. Tisk, spar, spar. Oblak shouted in choppy Chinese. Spar. Lu Qing took a deep breath and let the huge red sun fall from the sky and crash into the ice. Against a strong opponent, he had to give it his all. At that moment, Oblak's body suddenly expanded. He swung his fist in a condescending manner. Boom. The huge sun and the frozen river disappeared at the same time. Both fire and ice were extinguished by Lu Qing's fist. A mutated version of severe warning. Bam. Lu Qing blocked Oblak's hammer strike with a punch. At the point of contact, something seemed to collapse into a point, turning into a vortex. It stuck to Oblak's fist and neutralized the terrifying force. Boom. The vortex exploded, shooting out violent energy and infusing it into Oblak's body. Thud, thud, thud. Oblak took 3 steps back and fell limply in front of the referee, Janice. His eyes were wide open, but his body couldn't move for a moment. Thump. The sound of his strong body falling to the ground echoed in the surroundings. Charles and the others were stunned. Mason and Walker were stunned. Dawkins, Chao Jincheng, and the others were attracted to this scene as well. With one punch, Oblak, who had just dominated the martial arts arena, was knocked down? And he couldn't even stand up? He had just found a passerby superpower user to spar with. What's going on? Xianxia poked her pretty oval face out and asked blankly. I don't know either. He said it was a spar. Lu Qing was equally confused. Seeing that the group of foreigners didn't make a move, he didn't want to bother with them. He held the girl's hand and continued walking to the bus stop. A spar? Why would he suddenly want to spar with you? Xianxia asked, puzzled. What's the point of a spar with a guy who can be knocked down with one punch? Lu Qing answered seriously, he's actually quite strong. It's just that his body is almost at its limit. Why would he want to spar with you when his body is almost at its limit? I don't get it either. I don't either. I can't understand what's going on in this foreigner's mind. Yeah, maybe this is the generation gap caused by the difference in culture and education. The two walked further and further away until they were out of sight. Seeing that the dating couple was about to reach the bus stop, the translator was in a dilemma. He didn't know whether to tell the Brutale delegation about their discussion. What are they talking about? Dawkins, the mayor of Brutale, glanced at O'Block, who was being helped up, and asked. The translator hesitated and answered, they said that Mr. O'Block is very strong, but he's too tired. That's why he's like this. Too tired? That's why he's like this? Dawkins, Mason, Walker, and the rest were silent for a while. When they looked up, they saw a bus coming and stopping in front of the bus stop. They saw the spectators from before rush into the bus. They saw Lu Qing with one hand in his pocket, pulling Xianxia onto the bus. They saw him squeezing into a space, one hand holding the bracelet and the other protecting the girl. The bus started moving away, leaving a group of quiet people behind. Chapter 347. The cold wind whistled past. Dawkins shivered and broke free from the indescribable feeling. He turned to look at Chao Jincheng, the mayor of Gaofan City. Chao Jincheng didn't show any abnormality. His expression relaxed as he smiled faintly. Young people nowadays, those who are capable, are all very strong. They don't like to participate in social events like ours. The beautiful and dignified female translator hesitated for a few seconds, but in the end she relayed the entire sentence to Dawkins and Mason Walker. She also clearly highlighted the two main points that Mayor Chao emphasized. First, the martial arts exchange match is part of the social event. It doesn't matter whether we win or lose. We don't care at all. Second, the young fighters here who are really capable have bad tempers. They didn't participate in the social event. If Chao Jincheng had said this before, it would have been a case of putting on a false front. But now it was just right, just right. After hearing the translation, Mason Walker's expression changed slightly. Dawkins' smile stiffened a little. The whole delegation's high spirits and arrogance had dissipated a lot. Fortunately, several luxury buses arrived in time, allowing them to smoothly change the topic. They waved goodbye in a friendly manner. O'Block, who was supported by others, finally recovered. He murmured to himself, that punch was very magical, very, very magical. The Brutale delegation looked at each other and pushed O'Block into the bus. Chao Jincheng didn't show his confusion until the convoy was far away. He turned to Wang Mingkong, the person in charge of Xuanhuan Club. Who was that? Wang Mingkong was a few steps behind and didn't see the fight. He was also confused and quickly looked at Zhang Zhutong. Zhang Zhutong sighed faintly and said, that's right. It was Lu Qing. Lu Qing? Han Zhifei and the others finally understood why that back was so familiar. Lu Qing. Ah, the champion of the provincial youth tournament. Luo Zhong, the governor in charge of martial arts affairs, recalled who Lu Qing was. No wonder, no wonder. Chao Jincheng was relieved and couldn't help but sigh. This young man is so considerate. Lu Qing was from Xiaoshan, and his household registration had been moved to Songqing. He didn't work in Gaofan, so he had nothing to do with this city. If he showed up in the exchange match and was found out by the Brutale delegation, it would be very embarrassing. Fraud would affect the business cooperation between the two sides. Now that he had casually passed by and provoked O'Block to take the initiative to attack, the nature of the matter was completely different. This young man really has a sense of pride for his province. Mayor Chao thought to himself. As for the possibility that Lu Qing just happened to pass by, he didn't even consider it. How is that possible? Inform all the relevant people in charge. If the Brutale delegation asks about what happened just now, tell them that they didn't recognize the young martial artist, Chao Jincheng said to his secretary. Listening to their conversation, Zhang Zhutong looked at Han Zhifei and the others with a complicated expression. From their eyes, he could see that they were sighing. At this moment, the words Lu Qing had said to him in the semifinals suddenly flashed through his mind. I don't need others to judge my qualifications. 1 year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, I hope you'll still have the courage and confidence to say what you just said. His words were still ringing in his ears. Only half a year. Lu Qing and Xianxia got off the bus at the opposite side of Mingqi International Hotel. Swinging their intertwined hands, Lu Qing and Xianxia slowly walked through the pedestrian walkway into the hotel lobby, ending this casual date and the dreamy journey of the day. While Lu Qing was taking a shower, Xianxia had changed into a cute set of pajamas. Bunny ears dangled on her chest, swaying back and forth. She sat on the bed barefooted, picked up the vibrating phone and chose to answer. Hello Xuanhuan. Why are you so late? Cuckoo, your Qing is not honest. Gu Shuang said directly. What's wrong with him? Xianxia asked blankly. Gu Shuang ground her teeth and said, Your Qing swore in front of me yesterday that he wouldn't join the Brudale delegation. But today he went to the Beetle Arena and beat up their new fighting star. Humph, a guy who doesn't keep his word. That's the Brudale delegation. No wonder there's a strong foreigner. Xianxia came to her senses and explained with a smile. He didn't mean it. We were on a casual trip today. We got on whichever bus we saw and got off wherever we wanted. Finally we came to the Beetle Arena. And it was that foreign fighter who took the initiative to challenge Qing. Yo, you two are quite romantic. Gu Shuang said, half sighing and half joking. Then she said, what a coincidence. The fighter your Qing knocked down with one punch is called O Block. He just defeated Zhang Zhutong, Han Zhifei and Qiu Shan in the Beetle Arena, making those uncles, aunts and grandparents lose face. I see. Qing is saying that the foreign fighter's physical condition is close to the limit. Xianxia confirmed the details. But this guy is famous for his abnormal physical strength. I think he's close to the inhuman stage just like your Qing. Gu Shuang revealed more information and said with a grin, bring your Qing to the party and make me proud. I have to let those guys know that I know such a powerful genius warrior. Go find one yourself. Xianxia scolded her with a smile. Gu Shuang chuckled and said, well, I have a new target today. I'm going to flirt with him. Can't you just be in a good relationship? What's the point of changing boyfriends? Xianxia couldn't help but say, if you meet someone with an extreme personality, you'll probably get into trouble. I'm not dating anyone. We broke up because we don't have feelings for each other anymore. Gu Shuang explained. Okay, I'll stop talking about you. Xianxia typed rationally. We'll talk about other things on QQ. Okay. Gu Shuang hung up the phone. Xianxia held the phone and shouted subconsciously, Qing, I have something to tell you. After shouting, she remembered that Qing was taking a shower. The sound of water is so loud that he probably can't hear it. As the thought flashed through her mind, Xianxia noticed that the sound of water had stopped. The door of the bathroom was pulled open and Qing stuck his upper body out. What's up? Seeing his bare chest, rolling water droplets and wet hair, Xianxia quickly closed her eyes and said coquettishly, can't you put on some clothes before asking? As she spoke, she squinted her left eye and glanced at him. She chuckled and said, nice body, feel free to touch me. Qing responded shamelessly. Xianxia turned her head and said, Xuang said that the foreigner you knocked down is the genius fighter from the Brudale delegation O Block. While speaking, she turned her head back and opened her eyes completely. She sized up the bathroom door openly. From the Brudale delegation, no wonder. Qing said in realization. Then he laughed and shook his head. It's a pity that we didn't have a proper match. I feel like I've swallowed too much. Brudale was a branch of the Mission sect, one of the main martial arts schools in Europe and America. They used faith to enhance one's willpower, control one's spirit and control one's body. However, they did not practice force concentration or body refining Big Dan. Instead, they believed that there were 10 elements in the human body, corresponding to different symbols. When all of them were condensed, a tree of life could grow and reach the final crown. These 10 primordial essences were located in different parts of the body. Every time 3 of them were truly stimulated, different characteristics would be obtained. Based on one's own characteristics, it was like awakening a type of superpower, and they would complement each other, such as physical strength and strength. Compared to the Dan stage martial arts, this kind of martial arts school's absolute reaction ability was much weaker. It also lacked the smoothness and transparency of the whole body's strength. However, its explosive power was stronger and had a special bonus. Lu Qing had read about this in the Longhu Club forum. As for the details, he didn't know. Didn't you say there would be plenty of chances in the future? Xianxia smiled. You're right. Lu Qing went back to the bathroom. He dried his body and hair with a towel, put on his pajamas and walked out. Approaching the bed, he looked at Xianxia who was lying down obediently. He chuckled. Who said she wanted to kiss me before? It was all interrupted by that guy. Not me. Xianxia shook her head like a rattledrum with a smile in her eyes. Since you don't want to admit it, I'll kiss you. Lu Qing climbed onto the bed. Since you won't smile at me, I'll give you one. In the hotel where the Broodale delegation was staying. Oblak sat on the sofa in the lobby, lost in thought. Oh, Oblak, why are you like this? You fought 3 matches before you went to challenge that superpower guy. Come have a few drinks and you'll forget. Black-haired Charles walked over with 2 glasses of wine. Johnny chimed in, my cute, beautiful and smart little sonny told me that you can't see anything from a sudden encounter. Have a good night's sleep. The sun will rise again tomorrow. Oblak suddenly stood up and rushed to the elevator. He went up to the 25th floor and knocked on the door of his teacher, Mason Walker. What's the matter? Mason Walker looked at his student with eyes as blue as the sea. Teacher, I want to challenge that superpower guy for real. Oblak blurted out. Mason Walker pondered for a few seconds and said, we've asked the gentlemen in Gaofun. They didn't recognize that superpower guy. Or rather, they didn't want to tell us. Besides, we're only here for a few days. But Oblak still wanted to fight for something. Mason Walker smiled and said, such a powerful superpower guy will become more and more famous. As long as you're still growing, you'll definitely meet him one day. The martial arts world of China was also very important to foreign countries, but most of their attention was on the top professional competitions and title matches. I hope so. Oblak sighed dejectedly. Chapter 348. On the afternoon of the 20th, Lu Qing and Xianxia arrived at Gaofun East Railway Station and took the train back to Xiaoshan. After the casual date, they went to the wildlife park yesterday and observed the tiger form, monkey form, and other postures up close. They watched a few panda cubs basking in the sun and left a lot of photos that carried beautiful memories. This morning they didn't go anywhere. After returning from their morning exercise, they stayed in their room. Sometimes they kissed each other and sometimes they leaned against each other to watch shows on their tablets. At this time, the Broodale delegation's trip entered its 3rd day. Oblak was invited to participate in the Gaofun martial arts activities, but he was disappointed because he didn't find the superpower user who defeated him. The train sped through the mountains and across the fields. Lu Qing was sharing a funny post with Xianxia when he received a call from Wu Ting, a high school freshman with a ponytail, from the VIP class during the summer vacation. Hello. Lu Qing answered the call in confusion. Sir Lu, when are you coming back to Xiaoshan? Wu Ting asked in a light tone. What's up? I don't think I'll work part-time in the martial arts club during the winter vacation. Lu Qing thought the girl wanted to continue her martial arts training. It was not that he didn't want to earn money by the way. After school started, he had no income except for the living expenses provided by his family. Although he had fewer dates due to the tight schedule, his expenses in other aspects had increased. For example, Queen of Thought and the others had worked out a prescription for the internal practice of the swordsman formula after a period of study and mastery. Geezer sure had passed it to him. There were many similar things. After deducting the fixed amount provided by the Ice God sect every month, the rest was still very valuable. In just a few months, Lu Qing had spent nearly 80,000 yuan. The strength of a weak 6th pin was not something that could be obtained easily. Plus the expenses of dates, gifts, and hotels, Lu Qing's savings had dropped below 200,000 yuan. Since he couldn't find a source of income, it was inevitable that he would want to work part-time to teach students. However, the martial arts club would be closed during the Chinese New Year. There was no such thing as a winter vacation class. Hearing Lu Qing's answer, Wu Ting didn't feel disappointed. Instead, she said happily, "Can't I find you for no reason?" "Yes," Lu Qing said half-jokingly. Wu Ting was speechless for a moment. After a dozen seconds of silence, she smiled bitterly. "I just realized that Sir Lu has a sharp tongue. It's not me who wants to find you. It's my dad who wants to find you." "Why is your dad looking for me?" Lu Qing was even more confused. Wu Ting giggled and said, "My father owns a martial arts supplies company. He wants to invite you to endorse their shoes so that they can expand beyond Xing province and into the whole country." Endorsement? Lu Qing was shocked. How could he get an endorsement at his level? Wasn't it said that only mighty ones with physical invulnerability were qualified to have a share of this cake? Xianxia was attracted by their conversation. She turned her head and blinked her eyes in confusion. "My dad said that, Sir Lu, you have a bright future ahead of you." "Yes, it's measured, not bright. You will definitely reach the peak of martial arts in the future," Wu Ting explained excitedly. "Our Sir Lu is amazing." Lu Qing replied conscientiously, "That's a matter for the future. No one dares to guarantee anything. If your father asks me to endorse him now, he will most likely suffer a loss. No, Sir Lu, you have a lot of attention now. We all watched the battle between you and Peng Leyun. My dad said that as a heavenly son of the era and a native of Xing province, you can definitely help him open up more markets in the province, and even open up channels outside the province. Wu Ting repeated, anyway, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to shoot commercials. You just need to wear the martial arts shoes that we specially made for you every time in the challenge tournament. Then it broke into pieces, Lu Qing said with cold humor. Wu Ting was speechless again. After hearing what the people around her said, she giggled and said, what are you afraid of? Which martial arts shoes are not like this? As long as our design is cool enough, as long as you wear it well enough, as long as it can last a few rounds, there will be plenty of fashionistas like us who will buy it. She made fun of herself without any hesitation. This is too sudden. I'm a little confused. I'll think about it and give you a reply. Lu Qing did not agree impulsively. Wu Ting smiled and said, what my dad means is that after you return to Xiaoshan, you can come to the company and talk to him face to face. If you agree, he will directly test the data and make the most suitable martial arts shoes for you. Okay, I'll be back in Xiaoshan in the afternoon. When will your dad be in the company these days? Lu Qing decided to listen to the specific terms. Well, my dad will be on a business trip tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. He's in the company today. How about you go to see him before 6 p.m.? Wu Ting asked tentatively. Okay, send me the address. I'll let you know when I go out. Lu Qing said after thinking about it. Wu Ting smiled and said, yes, Sir Lu. After hanging up the phone, Lu Qing looked at Xianxia who was beside him. He didn't need to repeat himself. The girl already knew what was going on. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, you already have an endorsement contract. My Qing is so awesome. I don't know the specific conditions, but I guess the price won't be too high. Lu Qing was happy, but he still kept his mind. With his current strength and level, it was true that he could not get a good price. But for him, who had an unstable income every year, it was a good supplement. Xianxia rolled her eyes and said with concern, even if it's a good deal, don't rush to sign the contract. Take it back and let the lawyer have a look first in case there's a trap. Well, not many people dare to cheat you, but some people are rascals. They're just a pile of sh*t. Even if they can't cheat you, they can still disgust you. Yes, Coach Yen. Lu Qing answered happily. Xianxia pursed her lips and smiled. She suddenly sighed and said, I can't buy you martial arts shoes in the future. No, I'll only wear them in the competition. For training, the Love brand is still the best. I've only worn the first pair of martial arts shoes you gave me a few times. It's still brand new. Lu Qing took the opportunity to show off. Xianxia smiled and looked out of the window slightly proudly. It took only a little more than an hour to go from Gaofan to Xiaoshan by train. They soon saw the familiar scenery. The girl also received a call from Empress Dowager. They deliberately chose this train to arrive at the same time as the arrival time of one of the high-speed trains from Songqing to Xiaoshan. Okay, we'll be there soon. Xianxia hung up the phone and watched Lu Qing unload the luggage. Her eyes became gentle and she reached out to help him tidy up his clothes. After returning to Xiaoshan, they would be busy with the new year. Except for morning exercises, they would have less time to see each other. After getting off the train, they reluctantly parted at the arrival hall. Lu Qing carried the luggage and went out of the station. He replied to the girl's message and then called his mother. Mom, I'm here. Qi Fang's background was very noisy. She said in a loud voice, your dad and I are in the renovation business. We don't have time to buy groceries. You can go to the market by yourself and buy whatever you want. I'll cook for you when I come back. Alas, the new year is coming and the renovation workers are all thinking about home. You have to keep an eye on them and try to get the water and electricity ready before the new year. My dear mother. I've just come back and I'm already being ordered around. Lu Qing laughed and shook his head, agreeing. After a long time of careful selection, Qi Fang finally chose a house of 130 square meters. It had 3 bedrooms, 2 living rooms and 2 bathrooms. It also came with a free entrance and a balcony. The total cost was more than 550,000 yuan after taxes and fees. Because it was the full payment except for the 400,000 yuan Lu Qing gave, the family was basically emptied. After 2 months, they finally had enough money to do the water and electricity. Qi Fang, who had been bullied by borrowing money, didn't want to try again if it wasn't necessary. Lu Qing got on the bus and staggered back to the neighborhood. Along the way, the uncles and aunties he met all greeted him warmly, saying things like, "Oh, Qing has made a name for himself." They praised him for remembering his parents' kindness and forking out money to buy a house for his family. Looking at the envious and sighing neighbors, Lu Qing only had one thought in his mind. That was, how long has my mom been bragging about her son buying a house? How widely has she spread the news? When he approached the doorway, he met another acquaintance, Wang Su's father. "Hello, Uncle Wang." Lu Qing greeted him politely. Wang Su's father's body was a little hunched, and his hair was very white. He looked like he was in his 60s or 70s. He looked at Lu Qing and laughed. "Qing, you're on vacation? You've done well. Your parents are enjoying life." "Uncle Wang, don't say that. It's good enough to believe half of my mom's words." Lu Qing scolded his mother. "It's good enough to believe half of it." Wang Su's father sighed with emotion. He walked out of the unit and turned to the group of old men playing chess. Looking back, Lu Qing watched his father's back disappear into the distance. He sighed with mixed feelings in his heart. When people take the wrong path, they're not the only ones who get hurt. Now that the limelight is completely over, I'll ask Uncle Xing to introduce me to visit Wang Su in prison. After calming himself down, he returned home, put down his backpack, picked up the basket, and went to the market. The last time he went there alone was when he was in the 5th grade of primary school. He didn't go there to buy groceries but to find his mother. "I'm a little nervous thinking about going to buy groceries by myself." Lu Qing sent a message to xianxia with a smile. Xianxia sent an emoji with half of her mouth covered and whispered, "I haven't been to the market before. Then I'm better than you." Lu Qing sent an emoji with arms akimbo. Do you know how to bargain?" Xianxia asked angrily. "No. Do you know how to distinguish the quality of the meat?" "You should be able to tell a little." "Can you tell if the food is watered?" "Nope." "Can you pick out the good quality of the food?" "Nope." Lu Qing felt very guilty. He found that the identity of youth tournament champion was completely useless in the market. "Can you tell if it's wild or domesticated?" Xianxia asked persistently. Lu Qing replied with a text emoji, annoyed and amused at the same time. "Classmate, you've killed the conversation." "Ah." Xianxia sent an emoji of laughing. "Hurry up and buy groceries. I'm waiting for your battle report." After entering the market, Lu Qing walked nimbly around the stands and randomly chose a pork stall. He asked the fierce-looking stall owner, "How much is this pork rib?" "Well, I want to eat winter melon and pork rib soup tonight." After a fruitless bargaining, he looked at the stall owner who was chopping the pork rib and asked, "Can I pay with my mobile phone?" "Yes, scan my QR code." The stall owner pointed at something on the side. "It's so convenient to pay with mobile phone. I don't have to bring cash or change." Lu Qing scanned the QR code. When the phone recognized the QR code, he suddenly found that the stall owner's name was Past Events and Dreams with the Wind. So artistic. He looked up at the fierce-looking stall owner in astonishment. Looking at the shiny oil on his hand, he couldn't believe that such an artistic name belonged to him. "Okay." Lu Qing paid the bill mechanically. The stall owner packed the pork rib and wiped his hands. He took a look at his phone and said, "Yes, received." It's really him. Lu Qing's mouth twitched. He put the pork rib into the basket and went to another stall. After that, he met the fishmonger named Love You Forever and the vegetable seller named Abandoned Master. He refreshed his worldview and shared these things with Xianxia as jokes. At 3:30 p.m. he went out again after buying groceries and called a taxi according to the address given by Wu Ting.